When night softly descends and the final echoes of a long day slowly dissolve into stillness, our minds often become their loudest. Unnamed worries, unfinished thoughts, emotions hovering between exhaustion and the quiet longing for peace, all of them weave themselves into a thin veil of mist settling gently within. In the modern world, where we are expected to be strong, alert, composed, we sometimes forget that we too need to release, to soften, to return to ourselves. Tonight, I want to offer you that place, a slow, inward journey into the subtle shadows of psychology, where the disturbing psychology tricks are no longer frightening, but instead become doorways into self-understanding. As Carl Jung once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. So let your shoulders loosen, let your breath fall into a softer rhythm, and allow this voice to guide you into a quiet inner space where every story drifts like a gentle breeze, stirring reflection, calming the mind, and slowly lulling you into a peaceful, restful sleep. When night stretches across the sky and the last sounds of life slowly fade behind us, we return to that intimate stillness where only breath, thought, and the most delicate parts of ourselves remain. In that fragile moment, an ancient question, unanswered for as long as humanity has existed, quietly stirs again, like a small ember glowing in the depths of the mind. Where does consciousness come from? How can a cold mass of matter, nothing more than atoms moving according to physical laws, become you, become me, become the living awareness listening to these words right now? Perhaps this is one of the greatest mysteries we have ever chased, a riddle that outlived civilizations and will continue to outlive us. And so, to begin tonight's journey, we return to the very source, to a time before the universe had the light of thought, when everything was only silence and the pure, mechanical motion of matter. Slow down for a moment, take a deep breath, and let your mind open like a still lake beneath a windless night, ready to receive one of the strangest stories, a story in which you yourself are the central character. In the beginning, the universe was only darkness, the fading warmth of ancient explosions, the drifting of unconscious particles with no feeling, no intention, no dream. There was no hope, no sorrow, no love, no imagination, only interactions of matter, indifferent and cold. And then something happened in that endless river of time. Somewhere far away, or perhaps within a single cell inside your own body, a tiny awakening stirred as though the universe opened its eyes for the first time. A faint curiosity, a spark in the dark, a primitive form of awareness. From lifeless molecules came cells that reacted to their surroundings. From cells came nerves, from nerves came brains, and eventually consciousness. The very thing you're using to understand these words, to feel this voice flowing through your inner world like a stream. The puzzle that troubles us is not how the brain processes information, but something deeper. Why does that processing feel like this? Why does light have warmth? Why does sound have softness? Why do memories carry scent? And why can the invisible tremble the human heart? Philosopher David Chalmers called this the hard problem of consciousness, the question that slips beyond neuroscience and physics, striking directly at the essence of existence itself. To understand this mystery, imagine yourself as a machine. Electrical signals flow through neural networks. Chemical reactions follow precise rules. This explains how information is processed, but not why it has flavor, why it has tone, why it has something like a soul. Take the experience of seeing red. It is not merely a wavelength of 700 nanometers. It is also the feeling of something intimate, undeniable, impossibly hard to put into words. And again the question rises, why does such cold signaling become vivid experience? Many philosophers sought a way out. Descartes believed mind and body were separate, one physical, one spiritual. Yet this division could not explain how the two worlds touch and shape each other. Others argued that consciousness is simply an emergent property of complexity, that once matter becomes intricate enough, subjective experience appears. But why should complexity give rise to emotion? Why should a pattern of signals give birth to loneliness? These questions echo like voices in a deep cavern, bouncing endlessly without final reply. Carl Jung once wrote in The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." And perhaps this is a gentle hint. Instead of explaining consciousness only through science, we might turn inward toward our own experience. When you close your eyes, you can feel consciousness flow like a river, passing through sensations, thoughts, memories, desires. Consciousness is not a fixed point. It is continuous movement, like wind, like the ocean. So perhaps the question, where does consciousness come from, has been slightly misplaced from the start. Maybe consciousness is not a late product of evolution, but a fundamental feature of the universe, a foundation from which everything else arises. This is the view explored by many modern thinkers, from the theories of panpsychism to certain interpretations of quantum physics. Physicist Max Planck once wrote, "I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness." It is a bold suggestion that matter does not give birth to consciousness, but consciousness gives birth to matter. That the universe exists because, in some sense, it is perceived. And as you sit here, listening, breathing, letting your body gradually soften, you may find that questions lose their urgency, overshadowed by the simple truth of being present. You are here, you are listening, you are feeling. In the darkness, consciousness does not need to be explained. It only needs to be acknowledged. Yet there is something strange as well. Consciousness is fragile. A small blow to the skull, a brief lack of oxygen, a damaged region of the brain, and the colors of the world can vanish. Memories can dissolve. Even you can become someone entirely different. This fragility has led many philosophers to compare consciousness to a candle flame. Brilliant, yet always trembling, always vulnerable to the slightest wind. Nietzsche once wrote in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, "All truly great thoughts are conceived while walking." And indeed, the exploration of consciousness is much like walking through night. Each step reveals a little more, yet the entire path remains hidden. From this mystery of origins, let your thoughts drift gently like a thin wisp of smoke, opening the way toward the next chapters, where we explore how the brain constructs reality, how we live inside illusions we ourselves create, and how truth is often nothing more than a delicate curtain between two worlds. Continue to relax, letting the story draw you deeper into the soft journey of the night. For from Part 1, The Origin of Consciousness, we will drift seamlessly into Part 2, The Brain's Fabricated Reality, where you will discover that it is not only consciousness that is mysterious, but the entire world you see, shaped quietly by the architecture of your mind. Tonight, let everything become a gentle flow. Let the mysteries stop frightening you, and allow them instead to become a warm blanket settling over your thoughts, guiding you slowly into the stillness of sleep. As we close Part 1 and let the lingering echoes of the origins of consciousness dissolve into the quiet air, you may begin to sense something strange. Even if consciousness itself is a grand mystery, the world that consciousness is experiencing is no less uncertain. And it is precisely at this fragile boundary that our journey opens into part 2, where we discover that what we see, hear, and touch, those things that appear undeniably real, are, in truth, only fragments of an immense universe, and the rest is quietly stitched together, inferred, completed, and imagined by the brain, like a devoted painter crafting the picture you call reality. Let your mind continue to soften, to slow, like water settling after a gentle breeze, and prepare to enter a story no less mysterious than the nature of consciousness itself. The story of a world that, in large part, does not exist in the way you believe it does. Take a moment to look around the space you're sitting in. The outlines, the lights, the shadows, the familiar shapes. They all seem to appear clearly before you, but that clarity is only a perfect illusion. Neuroscience shows that you perceive only a tiny fraction of the visual information available to you. At the center of your vision, the brain processes sharp, detailed imagery. But at the edges, everything is blurry, vague, lacking structure. So why does it feel as though you can see the entire scene? Because the brain silently fills in the gaps. It guesses, infers, pulls data from moments just before, and then stitches everything together into a single smooth image that feels complete. What you see is not the real world, but the brain's reconstruction of it, a version it believes is most coherent, most useful. Here, we begin to recognize something familiar. Between the darkness of reality and the light of perception, there is always a distance, and in that distance, the brain becomes the most gifted storyteller. Philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer once wrote in The World as will and representation. The world is my representation. A brief sentence, yet one that overturns the world with its boldness. Reality is not something waiting out there. It is born within you, in each neural spark, each memory fragment, each internal map your brain creates to help you survive, navigate, and name the things around you. And if you look closer, you'll see that your brain doesn't just fill in images. It edits sounds, sensations, memories, and emotions, all in the name of coherence. For instance, when you listen to someone speak, you're not truly hearing every sound in full detail. Your brain predicts the next words, fills in ambiguities, corrects unclear syllables, like an editor tirelessly smoothing every sentence. Sometimes you hear what you want to hear, rather than what was actually said. Sometimes you interpret events through the lens of belief, rather than through the facts themselves. Each time, you are not receiving the world. You are creating it, unconsciously, instinctively, in a way that, once understood, makes you feel both small and infinite. Consider another image. Each night, as you lie down to sleep, there's a brief space between waking and dreaming where the brain begins to detach from the external world, narrowing the senses and replacing them with the first quiet visuals of dreams. A figure, a room, a path, all vividly real, though they are nothing more than constructions of the brain. And if the brain can do this so effortlessly while dreaming, why would it not do the same in subtler ways while you are awake? Perhaps the difference is only one of degree. Daytime reality is simply a dream the brain edits more carefully, using more data, so we call it real. But at its core, it remains a dream the brain sketches so you can survive within it. Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote in Beyond Good and Evil, "There are no facts, only interpretations." And strangely, the older we grow, the more tightly we cling to what we call facts, forgetting that all of them pass through the filters of the mind. This does not mean the world is false. It means the world is created inside you more than it is imposed upon you. When you recall a memory, it is not the original. It is an edited version. When you feel sadness, it is not only the circumstance, but the story your brain tells about the circumstance. When you see someone smile, you do not only see the smile. You interpret it through emotion, intuition, and experience. And sometimes you misinterpret. Not because you're flawed, but because the brain is designed to fill gaps, to create a sense of completion, even when the completion is inaccurate. Notice something. Whenever you feel fear, the fear is usually greater than the reality. Whenever you feel misunderstood, the pain often lies not in the words spoken, but in the brain's interpretation of them. Reality is never just what happens. Reality is how you experience what happens. And this is what makes us fragile, yet profoundly deep. One famous psychological experiment shows that if you hold your eyes still without moving them, the image before you will begin to fade and eventually disappear. This happens because the brain cannot process unchanging visual input. It does not receive truth. It receives change. This raises a haunting question. If nothing moves, does the world still exist? Or does it dissolve like a dream slipping away at dawn? And if the world can vanish in seconds when the eyes refuse to move, what can we truly trust? Immanuel Kant once wrote in Critique of Pure Reason, "We see things not as they are, but as we are." A foundational insight explaining not only the limits of perception, but also why each person lives in a different reality, even while walking the same street, looking at the same sky, loving the same person. Each reality is a quiet story the brain writes moment by moment. And when you understand this, something softens inside you. You blame yourself less for misunderstandings. You suffer less from old hurts, less from imagined fears. You begin to see that the brain exaggerates, distorts, magnifies, not to harm you, but to protect you. Instead of scolding yourself, you begin to listen, to whisper back, to live gently with your own mind. Because sometimes, the only thing you truly need is to know that you are living inside a painting your brain is weaving, and you have the power to choose the angle, the color, the story. As the night deepens and your breath slows, close your eyes once more. Feel the world dissolve. Feel the brain begin to create a new world just for you, where images melt into sensations, where sounds become rhythm, where everything softens until you no longer know what is real and what is dream. And in that moment, you may understand that reality is not meant to be grasped, but experienced. Not meant to be judged, but felt. Not meant to be controlled, but lived gently, moment by moment. From Part 2, The Brain's Fabricated Reality, we will begin drifting toward Part 3, the explanatory gap, where the question of feeling deepens into something even more vast, as though you are stepping into the very center of the dream your brain creates for you. Let your thoughts follow that flow, slow, deep, quiet, like a soft breeze passing through a half-open door in the night. For the more we understand the world the brain constructs, the closer we come to the gentle truth that everything you're experiencing is already a part of your healing. As we drift away from Part 2 and let the reflections on the reality the brain weaves dissolve softly into the quiet of the night, something peculiar emerges. The more we understand that the world we see is a construct of the brain, the more we are compelled toward a deeper question. Why do these purely physical processes become vivid, intimate experiences in the mind? While Part 2 showed us how the brain creates the world, Part 3 brings us to the very center, the point that centuries of science have not been able to illuminate. A silent chasm between matter and sensation, between structure and experience, between mechanism and meaning. This is the explanatory gap, the vast distance between what the brain does and what we feel. Allow your breath to slow, your eyelids to rest gently, and let your mind slip into this question as though stepping into a moonlit forest where even the sound of a falling leaf seems to carry its own hidden truth. For this is one of the most beautiful mysteries in philosophy and science. The body moves like a machine, yet life is felt like poetry. We know, or at least believe we know, how the brain works. We know electrical signals travel along neurons. We know neurotransmitters leap across synaptic gaps. We know which regions of the brain handle vision, hearing, emotion, memory. We can even watch these regions glow in scanners as you remember someone you love, feel pain, or drift into happiness. And yet none of this answers the simplest, most haunting question. Why do these cold electrochemical movements become the scent of nostalgia, the ache of longing, the warmth of love, the redness of a sunset, the numbing hush of sorrow? Why does a process become an experience? Philosopher David Chalmers called this the hard problem of consciousness, a problem not just difficult, but one that challenges the entire framework of human understanding. We can describe brain functions in exquisite detail, but we cannot describe why the sound of rain sends a quiet shiver through the heart, or why the soft glow of a candle brings such deep peace. These things cannot be measured, cannot be sliced, cannot be seen under a microscope. They are the subjective qualities of experience, the shimmering textures of consciousness known as qualia. Imagine taking a bite of chocolate. We can analyze sweetness, fat content, enzyme reactions, neural signaling to pour, but science still cannot explain why the taste of chocolate blooms in your mind the way it does. Colors are the same. We know wavelengths. We know the mechanics of the eye. We know how the brain decodes patterns of light. But why does the color blue feel blue? Why does red evoke warmth or intensity? Where does that feeling come from? Matter has no color. Light has no color. Neurons have no color. But the mind does. And the question is, how? Thomas Nagel, in his famous essay, What Is It Like to Be a Bat?, wrote that even if you knew every physical detail about a bat's brain, you still would not know what it feels like to be a bat. Knowing the mechanism does not grant you the experience. That is the unfillable gap between physics and consciousness. Let your thoughts drift gently, like a soft wind. Feel this truth. You are the only being in the universe who can experience your feelings exactly as you do. No one can know the precise texture of your sadness. No one can taste happiness the way it blooms in you. No one can enter the luminous inner light of your mind. That private world cannot be shared fully, cannot be measured, cannot be observed from the outside. It is a world only you can inhabit. And this is what makes consciousness one of the subtlest wonders of existence. When you touch something warm, we can describe the neural signals. We can describe how the brain interprets temperature. But we cannot explain why that warmth feels comforting, why a simple rise in temperature can awaken memories, soothe the heart, or make you feel safe. No formula can hold this. No brain scan can express it. It is something that can only be lived, never fully spoken. From the point of view of physics, you are just a complex arrangement of atoms. But from the point of view of consciousness, you are a universe of unfolding emotion. Everything in the cosmos can be written in equations, except what happens inside you. This leads us to wonder, does the real world exist out there? Or does it exist in your capacity to experience it? When Immanuel Kant wrote in Critique of Pure Reason, "The mind imposes laws upon nature," he was suggesting that we do not see the world as it is, but as the mind allows it to be seen. This deepens the gap between the brain that operates and the mind that perceives. Science can explain every mechanism, but not subjectivity. And subjectivity is where all mystery lives. When you feel pain, we can describe the injury signals, but no one can describe your pain. When you love, we can describe dopamine, oxytocin, neural activation, but no one can explain why one glance can send your heart trembling. When you grieve, we can describe stress hormones and neural pathways, but no one can explain why sorrow sometimes holds its own quiet beauty. Qualia, those crystals of experience, forever escape the grasp of language. Here, the night's voice draws you deeper still, as though you are listening to an underground stream, each drop echoing with its own meaning. As you listen, realize this: even the act of listening is a mystery. Sound waves are not a voice, noise is not meaning, and yet your mind transforms them into feeling, a sense of calm, a sense of connection, a sense that someone is walking beside you in this gentle darkness. Some say the explanatory gap exists only because we lack knowledge, that one day science will bridge it. Others believe the gap is eternal, not a gap in knowledge, but a gap in the nature of things. One side is matter, the other is experience, and nothing links them except the mystery of existence itself. Physicist Erwin Schrödinger once wrote in Mind and Matter, "The world is given to me only once, not one existing and one perceived," meaning there is not a material world and a world of experience. There is only one world, and experience is inseparable from it. When you grasp this, a strange peace arises, because at that point, you stop forcing answers. You stop straining to understand why you can feel at all. You simply feel. You let sadness visit gently. You let joy brush your heart. You watch thoughts drift like clouds across the sky. And you understand, experience does not need explanation to be real. It only needs acceptance. In this moment, let your awareness soften. Let each small emotion open a little space inside you. Let your mind lighten like a leaf floating on a quiet stream. This is the journey of the night, not to find answers, but to find stillness. And as you leave part 3, the explanatory gap, you may sense that you have moved deeper into your inner world, a place where feeling is no longer something to solve, but something to listen to. From here, we will drift gracefully into part 4, quantum consciousness, where reflections on awareness brush against the frontiers of quantum physics, like light dissolving into darkness, like dreams merging with reality. Let yourself float with the current, slow, warm, and filled with gentle pauses. Because tonight, every mystery can become a soft pillow for your resting mind. As we gently close part 3, with a vast silent gulf between the brain's physical workings and the depth of subjective experience appeared like a still abyss, you may notice something subtle. The more we reach for the essence of consciousness, the more it drifts away, like a hidden lantern receding into mist. And in that moment, when the question, "Why can I feel?" still hums softly within, you and I step into part 4. Quantum consciousness, a space where we no longer ask only about the brain, but about the universe itself. No longer about neurons, but about vibrations so small they cannot be captured. No longer about emotion, but about the deepest foundations of existence. Let your breath soften, let the mind open like a barely parted doorway, and allow the stillness to guide you into the strange territory of quantum mechanics, where certainty dissolves where matter ceases to behave like matter, where rules grow fluid, and where some thinkers believe the roots of consciousness may lie. Quantum mechanics describes the behavior of particles unimaginably small, electrons, photons, quarks, where a particle can be both wave and point, where a thing can exist in many places at once, where observation alters outcome, and where the nature of the universe becomes something soft, trembling, and unnamed. Niels Bohr once said, "If quantum mechanics hasn't profoundly shocked you, you haven't understood it yet." And within that shock, many have glimpsed the possibility that consciousness is linked to the quantum world, a realm poised between existence and non-existence, between knowing and unknowing. Every experience you have arises in the brain, but the brain's processes depend on microscopic events: molecular, ionic, electronic. Some physicists, like Roger Penrose, suggest that quantum events within neural microtubules may give rise to consciousness, implying that awareness emerges not from neurons themselves, but from collapses of the quantum wave function. If true, consciousness would not be a product of the brain, but a fundamental part of the universe, like space, time, or light. Max Planck wrote, "I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness, suggesting that matter does not create consciousness. Consciousness creates matter." A controversial view, yet strangely comforting. For if consciousness is fundamental, then you, even in your tenderness, your loneliness, the soft darkness around you, are part of the universe's pulse. A point of light in the whole, like the universe expanding from a single luminous origin. But this idea is contested because quantum mechanics studies what is small, while consciousness, your sorrow, joy, fear, the fragrance of memory, is vast and layered. Critics argue that linking the two pulls mysticism into science, but still, consciousness refuses ordinary rules. It has no position, no mass, no velocity, cannot be seen, yet it exists, the only thing you are completely certain of. So some ask whether consciousness belongs to another layer of reality, one quantum physics is brushing against. When you close your eyes at night and listen to your heartbeat, sometimes you may feel as though awareness is drifting beyond the body, not contained but expansive, like the ocean, while the body is just a boat floating on its surface. Ancient traditions, Buddhist, Hindu, Taoist, have long spoken of consciousness as a field enveloping all things, and quantum ideas like entanglement, where two particles react simultaneously across immense distances, suggest something invisible connects everything. Carl Jung called this synchronicity, writing in Synchronicity, and a causal connecting principle. The connection of events relies not on causality, but on meaning, hinting that consciousness may operate not in space-time, but in meaning itself. Some quantum thinkers refer to this as non-local consciousness, the idea that the brain does not generate awareness, but receives it, like a radio catching a signal. When the radio breaks, the music does not vanish. It simply cannot be heard. Many scientists reject this, but for your quiet journey tonight, what matters is not its scientific certainty, but the feeling it awakens. The possibility that your consciousness is not confined to the brain, but belongs to something vast and luminous. Something that does not vanish when neurons fall silent. Something in which thoughts, breath, dreams ripple like waves. Imagine that awareness is not inside your head, it is the sky, and the brain is only a window. The sky may be far too wide to grasp, but at times, when the heart is heavy or the world chaotic, you need only open the smallest window, a breath, a pause, a moment to feel it again. Einstein once wrote in "The world as I see it," The most beautiful thing we can experience is the mysterious, and if consciousness touches the quantum world, then each of us carries a quiet secret of the universe. Perhaps that is enough to soothe us, to remind us that every feeling matters, and that we are not fragile beings lost in a cold cosmos, but the place where the universe feels itself. As your breath lightens and your eyes grow soft, let this thought guide you toward peace. Perhaps consciousness does not arise from the brain, but from the foundation of existence itself. Perhaps you are not drifting through the universe. Perhaps the universe is drifting through you. From here, as you gently leave Part 4, Quantum Consciousness, we will move into Part 5, the fragility of awareness, where you will see that even if consciousness is fundamental, it remains delicate as smoke, a candle trembling in the wind, a beautiful paradox that helps you cherish the fleeting moment of simply being. As we quietly close Part 4, where quantum reflections made consciousness shimmer like a delicate wave flowing through the hidden fabric of the universe, you may feel your mind drifting between two realities. One immeasurably vast, where consciousness might be the foundation of all existence, and another painfully small, where a single, fragile injury to the brain can erase memory, identity, or the entire notion of I. It is this contrast, the infinity of consciousness and its profound vulnerability, that forms the quiet paradox we now step into in Part 5. Let your breath soften, let your chest open like a gentle doorway, and let yourself sense how everything that makes you you might be far more fragile than you ever realized. Tonight, we explore that fragility, not to frighten you, but to help you see how it is precisely this delicacy that makes life worth holding tenderly. Strange, isn't it? In Part 4, consciousness emerged as something possibly linked to quantum fields, something that might transcend the physical world itself. Yet when we return to human life, we see consciousness bound to a structure so fragile that a minor fall, a few seconds without oxygen, or a tiny injury to the brain can wipe out the entire inner universe of a person. A fall can erase memory. A tiny burst blood vessel can erase identity. A damaged region can turn a familiar soul into a stranger living inside the same body. Consciousness is like a flickering candle before the wind, breathtaking in its beauty, but impossibly easy to extinguish. As you sit in the dark, letting this voice float through the rhythm of your breath, feel this truth. No matter who you are or how long you've lived, all of you, your memories, emotions, identity, personality, rests within an organ barely 1.5 kilograms in weight. Soft, moist, vulnerable. And this is why the question, who am I, runs much deeper than it first appears. Because sometimes, with a single moment, you may no longer be you. Real stories show us this with heartbreaking clarity. A mother who, after a seizure, no longer recognizes her child, but remembers every song from childhood. A pianist who loses all technical skill after trauma, but keeps her kindness and humor. A man who, with a small brain injury, suddenly becomes a brilliant painter, as if a talent long asleep had been awakened by impact. All these stories reveal that consciousness is not only fragile, it is fluid. It cracks, reshapes, fractures, renews. Every transformation can redirect the entire trajectory of a life. William James wrote in The Principles of Psychology, consciousness does not appear to itself chopped up in bits. Yet the moment the brain is touched, consciousness can break into pieces, can split, can become disjointed streams where memory and identity no longer align. Those who damage the hippocampus lose the ability to form new memories. They live trapped in the 30 seconds of an eternal present, unable to enter tomorrow, unable to record a single new moment. Every time someone walks into the room, they greet them as if for the first time. But it isn't the first time. Their world has no time. And if losing memory is losing my history, then we ask, is memory the home of identity? Others with injuries to the prefrontal cortex undergo complete personality changes. Gentle souls become irritable. Deep thinkers become cold. Those who once loved fiercely become distant shadows of themselves. If personality can change so easily, is it truly the core of the self, or just another layer shaped by the brain? The story of Phineas Gage, the 19th century railroad worker, remains the most famous example. A steel rod blasted through his skull, sparing his life but destroying his former self. Friends said, Gage is no longer Gage. The body lived. The person vanished. In that moment, humanity awakened to the truth. Consciousness is so delicate that a bar of metal can rearrange the soul. If a single injury can erase identity, we must ask, does the self truly exist as a permanent thing? Or is it just a temporary pattern the brain constructs? A pattern that dissolves and reforms as the brain changes. Jean-Paul Sartre, in Being a Nothingness, wrote, consciousness is a nothingness, a void, a presence without shape, without essence, yet capable of reflecting everything. If consciousness is a nothing that sees, perhaps it is precisely its emptiness that makes it so easily reshaped, so easily wounded, so easily molded by the smallest shifts. But fragility is not only physical, it is emotional. A harsh sentence can erase a belief you carried for years. A single indifferent glance can make you question your worth. A small betrayal can shatter the image of someone you once held in your heart. Consciousness does not need steel to fracture. It needs only a moment. This is not said to make you fearful, but to remind you how exquisitely sensitive a human being truly is. You are fragile, but it is a beautiful fragility. Without it, you would not know love. Without it, you would not be moved. Without it, you would not cherish peaceful moments the way you do. It is this vulnerability that makes you profound. Friedrich Nietzsche wrote in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, one must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star. There must be cracks, fragility, chaos for light to enter. And the fragility within us is the very window through which illumination shines. As you lie back, letting your body sink deeper into the mattress, consider this. Your consciousness, fragile as it is still alive, still feeling, still breathing, still listening, still dreaming. Even though a small injury could take it all away, the fact that you are here, with all your memories, emotions, thoughts, and presence intact, is an irreplaceable gift. This recognition brings gratitude. Gratitude that today you still remember your name. Gratitude that you can still recognize the faces you love. Gratitude that you can still feel warmth in another's touch. None of these things are guaranteed. When you realize this, a soft peace spreads through your chest as though you are holding yourself, not with control, but with acceptance, gentleness, and the understanding that although life is uncertain, your fragility is what makes you truly alive. And now, as your mind settles, your breath slows, like waves meeting the shore under moonlight, we will soon step into part 6, Survival Without Consciousness, where we will see that even though consciousness is precious and delicate, the human body can survive without it as a final paradox and a reminder that consciousness is not what keeps us alive, but what allows us to understand that we live. Let the story cradle you. Let tonight be the place where you listen to the fragility of your own spirit, and from that softness, find peace. As we softly close Part 5, where the fragility of awareness appeared like a candle flickering in the wind, you may feel more clearly than ever that the self, the thing we cling to, the thing we believe belongs wholly to us, is really just a thin mist floating over a lake. A touch, a ripple, a small shift in the brain's machinery, all of it can cause that mist to vanish. Yet just as consciousness rises before us as the most precious center of experience, another paradox opens quietly. The body can live without it. It can breathe, react, persist, even when the person inside is no longer there. It is at this boundary, where delicate consciousness meets the body's silent endurance, that Part 6 begins, a deep low note in the philosophical melody guiding you into the night. Let your breath slow. Feel the stillness spreading gently from your chest to your fingertips, for we are stepping into a dark and intimate region of philosophy and psychology, a region where life and consciousness no longer mean the same thing. The body, in its most unadorned truth, does not need consciousness to survive. It needs rhythm, reflex, automatic processes refined through millions of years of evolution. When an infant is born, before it can perceive, before it forms a single memory, its heart beats, its lungs breathe, its intestines move. The body already knows how to live long before consciousness knows how to exist. Consciousness comes later. It is not the condition for life, but the condition for knowing one is alive. Arthur Schopenhauer wrote in The World as Will and Representation, life is not the product of the intellect. The intellect is the product of life. Life comes first. Consciousness is the afterglow. This becomes clearest when we look at moments where consciousness disappears, yet the body remains. Think of a coma. A person lies still in a hospital bed, eyes closed, unresponsive, unreachable. But their heart beats, their lungs breathe, their blood moves quietly beneath the skin. Life continues even when the one inside seems to have gone. Stranger still is the vegetative state, where the body sleeps and wakes in cycles, sometimes opening its eyes or making small movements. Yet there is no awareness, no recognition, no I, an empty inner world within a living body. This makes us ask, what marks the boundary between a human being and a living body? Does humanity begin with consciousness, or does it begin with the body, with consciousness only adding its light on top? Some philosophers like Daniel Dennett argue that consciousness is just a useful illusion, a convenient summary of countless unconscious processes. In Consciousness Explained, he writes, "There is no single, definitive stream of consciousness because there is no central witness, no central observer, no soul sitting in the brain watching the world. Only countless small processes running in a parallel, with consciousness simply being the story the brain tells afterward." If this is true, then the body living without consciousness is natural. Consciousness is merely a halo, a beautiful interface, a shadow cast by the machinery of the mind to give us the feeling of being someone. Without consciousness, the body remains the body, pure life moving through blood vessels and nerves. Look at sleep. In deep sleep, stage N3, awareness vanishes entirely. You do not know who you are or where you are. You have no self. Yet the body continues. The heart beats, the lungs breathe, the brain cleanses toxins, cells repair themselves. A part of you is absent, yet life carries on as if it never required you at all. When you dream, consciousness returns in strange, symbolic forms, fragmented and surreal, but the body stays behind, steady and silent. This asks a simple but profound question. Who is in charge of whom? Do you control the body, or does the body sustain you? From a biological view, the body is like a garden, self-regulating, self-healing, self-moving. Consciousness is just a visitor walking through it, believing it owns everything simply because it can see it. But the garden lives even when the visitor leaves. Consider automatism, those eerie moments when people perform complex behaviors without awareness. Someone drives for miles with no memory of how. Someone plays piano or paints while feeling half asleep. Someone runs from danger, climbs fences, crosses obstacles, and only afterward realizes what they've done. The body acts first. Consciousness narrates later. Spinoza wrote in Ethics, "The body can do many things that the mind wonders at." And indeed, the body acts beyond what consciousness fully grasps. A sleeping person raising their hand to catch something falling. A newborn turning instinctively toward its mother's breast. A patient in a coma withdrawing from pain. There is a life beneath awareness, a silent, automatic, pure life, always moving beneath the thinking mind we call me. And so we come to the question, if the body can live without consciousness, what is consciousness for? Not for survival, not for operating the body. So what is its purpose? Perhaps consciousness is not for living, but for feeling, for tasting color and sound and memory and love, for knowing sorrow is sorrow, joy is joy, for knowing that one lives. In this way, consciousness becomes a gift, not a requirement, a fragile, shimmering gift we explored in Part 5, made precious precisely because it is so delicate. You can lose consciousness without losing your worth. You are not only awareness, you are breath and heartbeat and the survival instincts of millions of ancestors flowing through you. Consciousness is light. The body is the horizon where that light appears. When you understand this, something inside relaxes. You no longer need to control everything. You no longer need to be alert, to explain, to understand every moment. There are parts of life you can simply release into the body's quiet wisdom. Let Carl Jung's words from the undiscovered self pass through your mind like a soft breeze. In each of us there is another whom we do not know. That other is the body, wise, persistent, loyal, protecting you even in the moments when you are not there. And from the deep silence of the night, as you listen to these words, let gratitude rise for the body that has guarded you even when awareness was lost, that has carried you through moments you cannot remember, that breathes for you now as you sink into rest. The fact that you are lying here, breathing softly in the dark, is the gentlest proof that life never leaves you, even when consciousness fades. From here, we drift toward Part 7, the experience machine, where the boundary between real and artificial, authentic and constructed, sensation and simulation becomes a doorway into the nature of reality itself. Let your mind float onward, slow and warm and peaceful. For tonight, you are not only living, you are feeling. As we close Part 6 and let the thought of a body continuing to live even when consciousness has vanished settle softly in the mind like fading ripples, you may feel a subtle shift. From the question, what keeps us alive, to the gentler, deeper, and far more challenging question, what makes life worth living? It is at this intersection, where the self grows fragile and life grows persistent, that we enter Part 7, The Experience Machine, a famous thought experiment by Robert Nozick, where you are invited to confront the deepest desire within your own soul. Imagine yourself lying in the dark, your breath flowing evenly, and your mind opening like a slow, moving door into the night. There exists a machine, like a miracle. If you connect to it, you will live the perfect life you've always dreamed of. Radiant success, complete love, endless joy, achievements you may believe you could never reach in reality. You would not know it is false. Every experience in the machine would feel more vivid than real life. No failure, no loneliness, no heartbreak, no mornings of waking with emptiness, no long nights spent listening to your own thoughts tapping at the door. Everything serene, everything beautiful. And Nozik's question is simple but piercing. Would you leave this world to enter the perfect machine? At first, the answer seems obvious. Why not? Who would refuse perfect happiness? But when the question sinks into the heart, something entirely different emerges, a very human hesitation. For somewhere deep inside you, in a place logic cannot reach, there is a longing for something more than pleasure, a longing for truth, for authenticity, for touching the real with your bare hands even if they bleed, for feeling life with a heart that is imperfect even if it carries cracks. You do not want merely the feeling of living, you want life itself. Nozick believed that what holds us back from entering the machine is the desire for a meaningful life, not merely a pleasant one. As Nietzsche wrote in The Gay Science, to live is to suffer. To survive is to find some meaning in the suffering. If suffering vanished entirely, would meaning disappear with it? Without challenge, there is no growth. Without lack, no gratitude. Without falling, no rising. Without darkness, no light retains its value. In the machine you may be happy, but it would be a scripted happiness without depth, without the alternating shadow that allows joy to shine, without contrast. You would be blissful, but you would not be real. As Dostoevsky wrote in Notes from Underground, man is sometimes extraordinarily, passionately in love with suffering. Not because humans enjoy pain, but because they long for authenticity, and authenticity always carries wounds. In the dark of the night, where you lie now, eyes gently closed, breathing quietly, you may feel it clearly, the things that make you. You are not only the tender moments, but the fractures as well, every scar etched by life, every moment you stood up after loss, every silent tear, every small warmth that touched you when you needed it most. The machine could give you happiness, but not a heart that trembles. It could give you triumph, but not the pride born from struggle. It could give you love, but not the fragile trust, the vulnerability, the raw sincerity that real love requires. Aldous Huxley wrote in Brave New World, "Actual happiness always looks pretty squalid in comparison with the overcompensations for misery. True happiness is rougher, less polished, but it is precisely that roughness that makes it precious." Imagine for a moment, if you had never known sadness, how would you understand joy? If you had never failed, how would you feel the depth of success? If you had never tasted loneliness, how would you know the value of someone's presence? What touches you in this life does not come from perfection, but from its flaws, not from programming, but from unpredictability, not from constant comfort, but from the raw truth of experience. Let this voice flow slowly through your mind, like warm water seeping into the tired corners of a long day. The question of the experience machine is not about real versus fake. It is a question about human nature. Do you want a perfect life or a true one? And deep in the gentle darkness, when all your defenses have fallen away, you likely already know the answer. You do not need a perfect machine. You need this life, imperfect, chaotic, painful at times, and yet filled with something no machine can simulate: meaning. From part 7, we gently drift into part 8, the fluid nature of identity, where you will see that even you are not a fixed thing, but a flowing river, changing with every moment like the soft rhythm of breath you feel right now. And no matter who you are or who you become, the most important thing is the quiet presence you're offering yourself in this night. As we softly close part 7, where the question of the experience machine still echoes faintly in the mind, asking whether we would trade truth for perfect illusion, you may feel something gentle begin to move within you. The sense that the self you cling to, protect, define, and search for is not as solid as it seems. It wavers, it shifts, it changes shape like flowing water. And that subtle recognition, that quiet awareness that identity is not a fixed core but a shimmering, fluid presence, becomes the doorway into part 8, the fluid nature of identity. Let your breath fall deeper. Let the mind settle like still water beneath a windless night, and allow this reflection to guide you into a journey both peaceful and profoundly awakening. If the body changes every day, if memory is not constant, if feelings and desires rise and fall, then who truly are you? In the soft darkness where you lie listening, feel your body for a moment. Every cell, every fiber, every drop of water inside you is not the same as a year ago, a month ago, or even yesterday. Your body renews itself quietly, faithfully, without needing your awareness. Bones, blood, skin, tissue, all shifting through time. Scientists say that within a few years, most cells are replaced by new ones. So the body cannot be the self. If it were, then the you from 10 years ago and the you now would be entirely different beings, and yet the feeling of I remains. So where does it live? Some say identity lies in memory, that your story is what makes you who you are. But memory is not fixed. It is like a diary rewritten each time you open it. Neuroscience shows that remembering is reconstruction, not playback. Every time you recall something, the memory changes. It takes on new emotions, new interpretations, new gaps, new colors. If memory shifts, then the self must shift too. And yet, despite memory's instability, you still sense a continuous you. So identity cannot lie solely in memory. Others say identity is in personality, but personality changes too, through time, environment, heartbreak, healing. The timid become brave, the impatient grow calm, the anxious become peaceful after years of inner work. We do not stay the same. We flow. As Heraclitus wrote long ago, no man ever steps in the same river twice. You cannot step into the same river because the river changes, and so do you. Identity, from this way of seeing, is not a stone but a river. Not something to hold, but something to witness. Not something we are, but something we continually become. As you rest in the darkness, with your breathing slowing and your mind drifting gently across layers of thought, a soft truth appears. The self is a process, not a thing, a movement, not a structure, a flow, not a form. If the body changes, if memory reshapes itself each time it is touched, if emotions rise and fall by the hour, then the self must be something always transforming. And strangely, it is beautiful because it transforms. William James, in The Principles of Psychology, described consciousness as a continuous flow. Consciousness is a stream, and if consciousness is a stream, then identity, born from consciousness, must also be a stream. But humans cling to fixity. We want to know who we are. We want to define ourselves. We want to believe in a core essence, something unchanging at the center of our being. Yet this desire for solidity causes suffering, because every time life asks us to change, through experience, through loss, Through growth, we resist, fearing that we will lose ourselves. The truth is that you never lose yourself. You simply shift shape, like water taking the form of whatever holds it, like clouds changing shape as the wind carries them, like the soul reorienting itself through what it has learned, what it has broken through, what it has loved. When you accept that identity is fluid, something inside softens. You no longer demand to be the perfect version of yourself. You no longer fear that you have changed too much. Change is not failure. Change is the nature of existence. Carl Jung wrote in Modern Man in Search of a Soul, "I'm not what happened to me. I'm what I choose to become." Identity does not live in what was, but in what is unfolding. Not in the memory, but in the intention. Not in the past narrative, but in the direction of your becoming. Let yourself feel this as you rest in the quiet. The parts of you that you once judged, the parts you once hid, the parts you once feared, all of them are simply moments in a flowing identity. And like all moments, they move, they change, they pass. This brings peace, because every sadness will move, every mistake will soften, every heaviness will loosen. And you, even in your chaos tonight, will eventually become a gentler version of yourself. But identity has a deeper layer still. If we flow through time, if we shift through experiences, then is there anything beneath the flow that stays? Is there an original, unchanging self? Is there something permanent in you? In Being and Time, Heidegger suggested that the self is not something to find, but something to enact. Identity is not an object. Identity is an activity. You are not a fixed thing. You are the act of existing. As you listen now, as you breathe, as you feel the quiet presence inside you, this presence, this awareness, is the only part of you that does not change. If that is true, then identity is not the flow itself, but the awareness of the flow. Everything else moves. The observer remains, and the observer is consciousness. In the stillness of this night, you may sense that your identity is not in your body, your memories, your personality, or your story, but in the awareness listening to these words. A presence soft as candlelight in a dark room. Identity is that awareness. Everything else, body, memory, emotion, narrative, is a wave. The awareness is the ocean, and when this truth settles gently within you, you naturally drift toward Part 9, the ship of Theseus, where the ancient question, "Who am I when every part of me is changing?" deepens even further, opening a doorway into the quiet, luminous core of your being that you now carry into the night. As the reflections of Part 8 on the fluid nature of identity continue to drift through your mind like a dark river, holding the faint glow of moonlight, you may now feel something unmistakably gentle rising within you. The recognition that the idea of I, the thing we believe to be solid, stable, permanent, is far softer than we thought, far more changeable, and far deeper than any answer we have ever given ourselves. And from this recognition, from this quiet sense that identity is movement rather than shape, we step into Part 9, the ship of Theseus paradox, where the question of the self transforms from a temporal ripple into a philosophical puzzle reaching the very root of existence. Let your breath sink low. Let your body soften like leaves resting on a forest floor, and let your mind open like a door gently pushed by the night. For the story of Part 9 is not merely a paradox. It is a mirror reflecting you in every moment of your life. The paradox of Theseus asks a question so simple yet so profound. If you replace every plank of a ship, one piece at a time until none of the original wood remains, is it still the same ship? And if you gather the old planks and rebuild them into another ship, which one is the real Theseus? What seems like a mental game actually touches the essence of all existence. What makes something or someone itself? Material, form, memory, history, or simply continuity? As you hear this, feel your own body once more. As we explored in Part 8, nearly every cell in you has been replaced. You're not made of what you were 10 years ago. So are you still the you of back then? And if memory shifts, emotion shifts, personality shifts, then what holds the I together as one continuous being? How different are you from the ship of Theseus? Let this thought drift like smoke. It is not meant to give you answers, but to let you taste the mystery of your own existence. Some philosophers say identity depends on material, that you are your body, and when your body changes, so do you. But that feels too crude for a creature of emotion and consciousness. Lose a limb, and you do not lose yourself. Replace a heart, and you do not become another person. Something exceeds the physical. Others claim identity lies in shape or structure. As long as the brain's form remains, you remain. But memory alters the inner shape more than any physical structure. Personality reshapes the inner world more than any outer form. Structure cannot be the self. Modern philosophers often say what makes identity is continuity, not matter, not memory, continuity. You today are not materially the you of yesterday, yet you feel the thread continuing. If that thread breaks, identity fractures. Just like the ship of Theseus. It replaces wood but continues its journey, and so it remains itself. Identity is continuity, and continuity is a perception. But if identity is merely a perception, does that mean the self is fragile, even illusory? This is where the paradox becomes beautiful, deep, and quietly heartbreaking. It reveals that the I is not something to find, but something continually created. The self is the gentle recognition that I am still here. Nietzsche wrote on the genealogy of morality. The doer is merely a fiction added to the deed. The self is a story added to what is happening. The ship of Theseus continues sailing, therefore it is recognized as itself. You continue being, therefore you are recognized as you. But if identity depends on continuity, what happens when continuity breaks? When memory is lost? When the mind changes color? When a person wakes after trauma as someone entirely new? The answer, tender or painful depending on how you hold it, is that they become a new ship. But that new ship still carries the echo of the old one. Identity is not a fixed point. It is a curve. A long poem rewritten by new light in every line. A breath, a habit, a feeling, a wound, a word left unsaid. You are all of these. And yet you are not only these, you are what remains. You are what emerges. You are what continues. Try placing your hand over your chest now, here, in the quietest darkness of the night. You can feel your heart beat, but you are not the same person who entered this moment a minute ago. Your thoughts shifted, your emotions shifted, your breath shifted. You are the ship being rebuilt plank by plank. And yet, mysteriously, you feel yourself as one. Where does that feeling come from? Not from matter, not from memory, not from form. It comes from awareness, from the act you are performing right now. Observing yourself. The observer within you is the only unchanging point. Everything else, body, story, thought, emotion, is the ship rebuilt each day, and that is not tragedy. It is beauty. In Meditations, Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it. When you understand identity as a flowing river, you no longer fear change. You no longer cling to old versions of yourself. You no longer pressure yourself to be fixed. You become gentler with your own becoming. You soften, you slow down, you let life reshape you, and you reshape life in the most natural, tender way. As you reach this point, feel that you are not bound by any past version. You are not limited by what has happened. You are the ship rebuilt each breath, each thought, each feeling. And because the ship changes, the journey has meaning. Because you change, life deepens. Because there is no fixed self, you are forever becoming. And from part 9, where the paradox of Theseus shows identity as a living reconstruction, we now drift softly into part 10, the unreliability of memory, where the story of memory, that fragile foundation we often mistake for truth, reveals a gentle but challenging reality. Memory is not a recording of life, but a story the mind rewrites in the tender shadows of its own making. As the reflections from part 9 on the paradox of Theseus continue to ripple softly through your mind, like slow waves across a dark lake, perhaps you already feel something deep beginning to settle. We are not fixed beings, but ongoing journeys. Ships rebuilt plank by plank through countless fragments of emotion, experience, and time. And if the self is a vessel always under reconstruction, then memory, which we so often treat as the foundation of identity, is not a solid anchor, but a journal written not in ink, but in feeling, nostalgia, and the echoes of what we lived as well as what we believed we lived. It is at this delicate boundary that we enter part 10, the unreliability of memory, the place where truth flickers like candlelight in the dark, revealing that memory is not a recording of reality, but a story the mind endlessly rewrites. Let your breath slow, let your heart soften like moss beneath bare feet, and let this voice guide you into a quiet and profound journey, where you will witness something both beautiful and fragile, that human memory has never been trustworthy, and that its fragility makes us deeply, tenderly human. When you remember a moment, a dusk, a hug, a gaze, a farewell, or an instant of such happiness your heart almost burst, your mind does not replay the past. It recreates it. It takes the emotions you feel now, the beliefs you've grown into, the wounds you've carried or healed, and layers them over what once was, then calls that mixture memory. It is like opening an old letter, but reading it through the eyes of who you are today, through today's tenderness or sorrow, through today's wisdom or longing. And so the memory changes. Its colors shift. Its texture softens or sharpens. Neuroscience calls this memory reconsolidation, the truth that every act of remembering is also an act of rewriting. Memory does not sit in a fixed drawer. It is a shimmer on water, changing with every touch. You may hold a memory you believe is crystal clear, but over time it becomes a woven tapestry of the truth and the stories you told yourself to understand, to endure, to move forward. As Freud wrote in The Interpretation of Dreams, memory is not an instrument for exploring the past, but its theater. Memory is not a tool, it is a stage. Your mind does not retrieve the past, it performs it. Sometimes accurately, sometimes distorted, sometimes gentler than it was, and sometimes harsher. Think of a memory you've carried for years, the face of someone you loved, a smile you swore you could never forget, a moment you believed changed your life. It is likely not the same face, not the same smile, not the same moment that truly occurred. But does that make it less beautiful? Or is it the reshaping itself that gives it the softness you needed? Memory is the story your heart revises in order to understand your life, to bear it, to keep moving. Augustine once wrote in Confessions, "Memory is the present of things past. Memory is not the past. It is the present reinterpreting the past. And because the present shifts, memory shifts with it. When you are sad, old memories grow heavy. When you are joyful, they brighten. When you are wounded, painful memories deepen. When you heal, those same memories soften and fade. Thus, memory is not truth, but a mirror reflecting the state of your soul in this very moment. Sometimes, memory bends reality to protect you. The mind may erase fragments too painful to hold, preserve only the gentle pieces, or create empty spaces where events blur, so you can breathe again. This is not deception. It is mercy. Studies show that when trauma overwhelms, the brain may freeze the memory, storing it so deep you cannot access it until you are strong enough. The mind becomes a quiet companion, shielding you from storms you are not yet able to face. And if memory is unreliable, if it can shift, vanish, or be rewritten by the emotion of the present, then what becomes of identity, which we often build upon memory? This is where Part 10 touches Part 9 with perfect continuity. Because if the ship of Theseus replaces its planks, and you replace your memories, emotions, and stories, who are you? The original, the reconstruction, or both? The answer, if there is one, does not live in logic. It lives in the stillness of now. Human beings are not what they remember. They are what they continue to feel. You do not need perfect memory to be yourself. You only need presence. The breath you are taking right now, the awareness you are holding, the life you are sensing. Memory is the shadow. Awareness is the light. The shadow may distort, but the light remains whole. As Sartre wrote in Being and Nothingness, we are our choices, and perhaps that is where identity truly resides. Not in the memories we carry, but in the choices we make every day. Memory can be flawed. Choice is real. It is choice that shapes the self, not the past. Imagine yourself on a quiet night, gazing at your hand and wondering, who have I been? What have I done? Am I the same as I was 3 years ago? The mind may respond with blurry images, half-truths, pieces softened by time. But when you place that hand over your heartbeat, the moment is real, untouched by distortion. That is you, not defined by what has gone, but by what is alive now. Memory may not hold you, but life does. Memory is unreliable, but that does not weaken you. It humanizes you. If memory were fixed, you could never change. If memory were perfect, you would be trapped in old versions of yourself. Its fluidity allows you to grow, gentler, deeper, wiser, calmer. And from this recognition, from seeing memory as a story that changes color, we drift into Part 11, Plato's Cave, where the question of reality expands beyond the mind and into the world itself, where a person can live an entire life inside shadows, believing they have seen the sun. And so, the philosophical journey of this night opens yet another door, quieter, deeper, inviting you to step forward into the stillness waiting just ahead. As the reflections on memory from Part 10 linger within you like a thin layer of luminous dust resting atop an old forgotten book, you may begin to sense that the human mind is not an honest archive, but a quiet painter who continually rewrites the past with the colors of the present. And it is precisely in realizing that memory is merely a story that changes its shades that you are led toward an even larger truth. Not only memory, but the very world you call real, may itself be nothing more than a reflection of something lying beyond your field of vision. From that realization, our path gently opens into Part 11, Plato's allegory of the cave. where illusion and truth intersect in an ancient lesson that still touches the consciousness of the modern mind. Let your breath slow. Let your thoughts drift like a small boat gliding on a night-lit surface, and allow this story to unfold softly, like the flicker of fire deep within an ancient cave. Plato asks us to imagine a group of people chained inside a cave for their entire lives. They cannot turn their heads, they can only face the wall before them. Behind them burns a fire, and between the fire and their bodies pass various objects, casting shadows onto the wall. These prisoners know nothing but the shadows. They call the shadows truth. They believe the shadows are the world. And when one of them escapes, turns around, steps outside the cave, and sees the real world, he is overwhelmed, disoriented, blinded by the light. But gradually, he understands the shadows were never reality. When he returns to tell the others, they mock him, even threaten him, because truth terrifies those who have grown comfortable inside familiar darkness. This story, though written more than 2,000 years ago in the Republic, still resounds through every corner of our inner lives. Plato wrote, "Human beings live in a world of illusions." And as you listen to these words in the gentle hush of the night, perhaps you notice that the image of those prisoners is not a picture of ancient society, but a reflection of ourselves. For throughout your life, you too have been surrounded by invisible walls, old beliefs, reconstructed memories, social expectations, fears, habits of thought, wounds you carry, and the limits you unconsciously place upon yourself. These become the shadows you look at and mistakenly call reality. The world you think is real may simply be the version your mind allows you to see. Just as the prisoners mistake shadows for the world, you sometimes mistake subjective feeling for absolute truth. You look at someone and assume they dislike you, but that is only the shadow of an old insecurity. You recall a memory and think it exact, but that is only the shadow of your present emotion. You look at your life and believe it lacks something, but that is only the shadow of fear. You imagine the future and see only darkness, but that is the shadow of things you haven't dared to face. And then, in a rare, gentle moment, a moment like the one you are in now, lying quietly and letting your mind be carried by this slow, nocturnal voice, you begin to realize that the world you experience is not the original world. It is a cave constructed from your unconscious, your memories, your hopes, your wounds, your personal mythology. Carl Jung wrote in Ion, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. As long as you only see the shadows, you will believe they are your destiny. And the longer you believe the shadows, the more you forget that beyond them lies something truer. Let this image drift through you like a faint breeze. Perhaps for many years, you have only seen the shadow of yourself, the shadow of fear that you mistook for limitation, the shadow of old pain that you mistook for truth, the shadow of someone else's words that you mistook for your essence. But as Plato shows, shadows are only shadows. We often confuse reflections for essence, feelings for truth, memory for reality. We live inside illusions without knowing we are inside illusions. And that is what makes us both fragile and profoundly human. Imagine for a moment if tomorrow you awoke with a mind as clear as a blank page, holding no old fears, no inherited expectations, no heavy memories, no quiet self-blame. How differently you would see your life. You would find that the light outside the cave does not frighten you. You would feel freer, lighter, more real. You would see that you are not the shadows cast upon the wall of your mind. You are the one who sees the shadows, not the shadows themselves. Yet stepping out of the cave is never easy. In Plato's story, The freed prisoner is hurt by the sun's brightness. He wants to turn back. Humans are the same. Truth often hurts more than illusion. Freedom often feels harder than captivity. Understanding often weighs more heavily than ignorance. But truth is the only place where you can breathe without the fear of bumping into your own shadows. Nietzsche once wrote, "And those who were seen dancing were thought to be insane by those who could not hear the music. Those still trapped in the cave will not understand the freed one. That does not make the light any less real." Feel this now in the quiet of night. Every time you face a fear, a wound, a painful memory, that is not your essence. It is only a shadow. And if you look gently, with enough patience, you will always find that behind every shadow there is a source of light. When you can see the shadow as shadow, that is the moment you begin to step out of the cave. Slowly, softly, without force, without fear, simply through awareness. Simply through seeing that many things you took as truths were merely illusions drawn by the brush of anxiety. And as this awareness enters you like a slow, steady breath, you will find that darkness loses its sharpness. Because now you know every shadow exists only because there is light somewhere behind it. From here, we drift into part 12, Socrates and the Examined Life, where you will see that not only Plato, but Socrates himself believed that a life becomes worth living only when one has the courage to look inward, to walk beyond the shadows of unconsciousness, and to seek truth in the deepest chambers of the soul. If you wish, I will continue part 12 in the same seamless, soothing, deeply reflective tone as the echoes from part 11, the story of Plato's cave, continue to flicker in your mind like small trembling flames inside a dark room. You may feel with striking clarity that human beings often live inside layers of illusion so delicate, so familiar, that we do not even know they are there. Shadows of distorted memories, shadows of inherited beliefs, shadows of fear, of quiet insecurities, of invisible limitations, all of them have become walls we have grown accustomed to calling the real world. And at the very moment we begin to see that much of our life is only reflection, only shadow, only the mind's projection painted upon its own inner cave, we step closer to the deepest question of philosophy ever asked. How do we live truthfully? It is at this threshold that our journey leads into part 12, Socrates and the Examined Life, where one ordinary man with no wealth, no power, no status, became the symbol of what it means to confront truth, not through answers, but through questions, questions that sometimes hurt, sometimes feel uncomfortable, but remain the only tools capable of breaking the chains of ignorance. Let your breath slow, let your body soften like a silk ribbon lying quietly in the night, and let your mind open like a silent doorway, welcoming a gentle wind. Socrates did not teach knowledge. He taught truth about the self. He said in Apology, "The unexamined life is not worth living. A life not examined, not questioned, not illuminated from within, is a life unworthy of its own depth." These are not the words of an arrogant philosopher, but the sigh of a man who understood too well how often we live like the prisoners in the cave, trusting shadows, trusting comfort, trusting the familiar, trusting old stories, old fears, old assumptions, never once asking, "Is this true?" But the moment you ask that question, everything shifts. Because a single honest question can open an entirely new life. Socrates never claimed to be wise. As Plato records in Apology, "I know that I know nothing," not because he truly knew nothing, but because he understood that every belief we hold may be flawed. What he cultivated was not knowledge, but doubt, not a despairing doubt, but a liberating one. Each question you ask cracks open a piece of illusion. Each question is a step outside the cave. Each question brings you closer to seeing yourself clearly. We tend to believe answers are what matter, but for Socrates, the question is always more important. Answers can deceive. Questions always reveal. And so, the philosophy of Socrates becomes an inner journey much like the one you're on tonight. Slow, deep, gentle, yet deeply freeing. Think for a moment about your own life. How many things do you believe simply because someone once told you so? How many fears do you carry from childhood that you never examined again? How many memories do you treat as truth even though Part 10 taught us that memory is a story rewritten again and again? How many self-judgments do you cling to that were never yours to begin with? If you touched each of these beliefs gently and asked, "Why? Is this true? Is this really me?" you would begin to see the cracks in the shadows you mistook for light. Socrates believed every question is a key that unlocks chains, a key that opens the cave, a key that opens the mind. And each time you dare to ask, even if the answer hurts, you become more human, more real, more free. Let this voice drift through you like a soft breath and allow yourself a quiet, private moment. A moment where you ask, whose life am I living? Whose dreams am I chasing? Whose fears am I holding? Do I cling to this memory because it is true, or simply because it is familiar? Am I hurting because of what is happening now, or because of an old story I never laid to rest? You may discover that much of your suffering does not come from reality, but from unexamined perception, from shadows you never questioned. Socrates wandered Athens asking those who believed they knew, what is justice? What is courage? What is virtue? What is a good life? And when they failed to answer, he did not laugh at them. He simply showed them they had never looked inward. We are the same. We say I'm sad, but do we ask why? We say I fear failure, but do we ask who taught us to fear it? We say I cannot change, but is that truth, or just a story that protects the comfort of the cave? For Socrates, to begin the questioning is to begin living, because questions invite light, invite freedom, invite authenticity. But he also knew something important. Truth sometimes hurts. Self-awareness is rarely gentle at first. The light is blinding to eyes accustomed to shadows. Yet that pain is the birth of clarity, the slow breaking of illusion, the quiet return to honesty, with oneself and with life. In Phaedrus, Plato quotes Socrates, "Know thyself," not as intellectual advice, but as the deepest invitation one human being can offer another. Look inward, because most of your suffering springs not from life itself, but from not understanding who you are, what you feel, what you fear, and what you long for beneath the layers of shadow. Tonight, as you lie in the softness of the dark, listening to this voice ripple through your mind like warm water brushing against your feet, allow yourself one gentle question. If I look at myself softly, what is the first truth I notice? The answer may come slowly, like a breath, or like a faint emotion without a name, and that is enough. Examining your life is not dissection, it is noticing, it is awareness as soft as moonlight. Socrates teaches us that awakening is not about being wise, but about being honest. Honest with fear, honest with longing, honest with wounds, honest with the parts of you that tremble and the parts of you that shine. And when you can look at all of that without turning away, you begin to step out of the cave, not into brightness, but into authenticity. Let your heart loosen as you hear this. You do not need all the answers. You only need the courage to ask. For questions are the beginning of freedom. And freedom is where the mind finally rests, finally breathes, finally becomes itself. From here, part 12, where Socrates guides us to face ourselves with honesty, we drift gently into part 13, Aristotle and the purpose of existence, where the question shifts from "Who am I?" to "What am I here for?" like a new breeze carrying you deeper into the philosophical night, where everything is soft as breath and deep as the darkness cradling you now. As the remnants of part 12, where Socrates guided us through the quiet courage of examining one's own life, continue to linger within you like the soft echo of an unanswered question, you may feel, with almost crystalline clarity, that truth does not arrive in perfect answers, but in the moment you dare to look inward. And when a person begins to step out of the illusions of the cave, begins to ask the deepest questions about fear, belief, memory, and identity, a new question always rises like the slow crest of sunrise behind a distant ridge. If I have the courage to see myself, then what do I live for? From that gentle bend in the path, we enter part 13, Aristotle's purpose of existence, where one of the greatest minds of ancient Greece whispers to us a truth both profound and tender. Everything in the universe possesses its own purpose. It's telos, and humans are no exception. Allow your breath to flow a little deeper, as though the mind is softly expanding to welcome an idea that has traveled across millennia, but touches you now in a way that feels intimate, near, unmistakably human. Aristotle believed that nothing exists without an intrinsic purpose guiding it toward its fullest form. The seed exists to become a tree. The eye exists to see. The star exists to shine. Everything leans toward a natural, inward destination. In Metaphysics, he writes, "Nature does nothing in vain. If that holds true for the seedling, for the wind, for the drop of water, for the simplest spark of life, then it must be even more true for human beings, the only creatures capable of asking, 'What was I born to do?'" Aristotle called this destination telos, the point of fulfillment, the moment of flowering, the place where one's essence reaches its most authentic expression. For human beings, he believed this telos was not found in wealth, fame, or pleasure, but in a state he named eudaimonia, a deep, steady happiness not built on fleeting emotion, but on living in harmony with one's truest nature. Eudaimonia is not joy. It is blossoming, not pleasure, but inner peace, not outward success, but the quiet alignment between soul and action. Feel this in a single, slow breath. There are days when you are tired, yet peaceful. Days when you accomplish nothing grand, yet feel true to yourself. Days imperfect, yet somehow more real than the ones you label successful. That is eudaimonia, the telos of the human heart. What set Aristotle apart was his belief that purpose is not something given from the outside, not from society, not from family, not from divine decree, but something that grows from within, the way a seed already contains the image of the tree it is destined to become. No one can tell you your purpose. It emerges from the gentle places where your heart lights up, from the things you do without needing to be asked, from the moments where your inner world feels spacious, open, quietly alive. Yet this raises a question. How do we discover our purpose in a world pulling us in every direction, in a world heavy with expectation, fear of failure, judgment, and memories so distorted, as we saw in earlier part, that they blur our perception? Aristotle does not offer a simple answer, but he offers a direction, soft, close, reminiscent of Socrates, yet gentler. Observe yourself. Notice what brings you alive. Notice the moments when your soul expands instead of contracts. Notice the actions you take not for reward, but because they feel right in your bones. Purpose is not always a grand career. It is not always brilliance, achievement, recognition, or legacy. Your telos might be kindness. It might be creation. It might be understanding. It might be healing. It might be inner peace. It might be becoming someone who causes no harm. It might be becoming the person you quietly know you were born to become. Aristotle believed that humans are only truly fulfilled when they live in accordance with their highest nature, and that nature, he said, is reason. But if you look closely, you will see that the reason Aristotle speaks of is not cold intellect. It is awareness. It is the capacity to see oneself as we did in part 12. It is stepping out of shadows as we did in part 11. It is seeing beyond distorted memory as we discovered in part 10. It is understanding that identity flows, yet holds a subtle thread of continuity as in part 9. As these layers unfold inside you, you may begin to sense that your purpose is not something distant or heavy. It is here, in this breath, in this awareness, in the quiet desire to live a life not wasted. Ask yourself softly, when do I feel most alive? That answer, delicate, small, shifting, is the thread that leads you to your telos. In Nicomachean Ethics, Aristotle writes, happiness is the activity of the soul in accordance with virtue. Happiness is not a state, but emotion, the activity of your soul when it acts in alignment with its essence. When you do something true to who you are, even in small ways, you step closer to your purpose. If you live a single day without betraying your inner self, you have already touched eudaimonia. And now, let this truth drift to you like the hush of night air. Your purpose is not a destination. It is a direction. It is a movement. It is the subtle feeling of drawing nearer to yourself. Telos is not where you arrive. It is how you walk. Not the result, but the journey. Not the achievement, but the presence. As you lie in the tender darkness, listening to each word flow like warm water over the tired edges of your day. Let yourself know, you do not need to chase a grand purpose. You only need to listen long enough to recognize the things that soften you rather than tighten you, that open you rather than shrink you, that help you live rather than merely exist. And from part 13, where Aristotle whispers that everything carries its own inner purpose, we drift gently into part 14, More's paradox, where you will discover that sometimes what we say and what we believe are profoundly misaligned, and in the gap between those contradictions lies another doorway into the depths of the human mind. A doorway where we learn to look at our inner paradoxes with gentleness, honesty, and quiet acceptance. As the quiet resonance of part 13 on Aristotle's purpose of existence continues to drift through your mind like gentle waves brushing against a night-lit shore, you may still feel the depth of what Aristotle left behind. That everything in the universe is quietly trying to become itself, to reach the fullest expression of its own inner nature. And as you let that idea sink softly into your heart, you begin to sense that the search for purpose is not only a journey outward, but also a journey inward, a journey toward inner coherence, where thoughts, beliefs, and feelings must align to create wholeness. But the strange thing is this: human beings are rarely whole within themselves. Outer truth and inner belief do not always meet. The mind and the heart often walk different paths. And between the call of inner nature that Aristotle described and the fragile reality of human psychology, there are always cracks, soft, quiet paradoxes that haunt us from within. It is from that gentle silence that we enter part 14, More's paradox, where the conflict between what we say and what we believe becomes not just a logical puzzle, but a mirror reflecting the private tensions hidden in every soul. Allow your breath to move slowly and evenly, and let your mind open like still water touched by moonlight. For what we are about to explore is not merely a linguistic paradox, but a window into the deeper layers of the psyche, the ones we often avoid facing. Moore's paradox is named after the philosopher G.E. Moore, who proposed a sentence that sounds harmless at first, but quietly breaks the entire framework of what the human mind considers reasonable. It is raining, but I don't believe that it is raining. Grammatically, the sentence is correct. Logically, it is structurally coherent, but psychologically, it is impossible. If you know it is raining, you must believe that it is raining. If you do not believe it, you cannot know it. The contradiction does not lie in the sentence, but in the speaker, in the one who utters it. And here is the strange part. Human beings experience this kind of contradiction every single day without noticing it. Not in the explicit form of it is raining, but I don't believe it, but in the form of whispered thoughts, vague feelings, and inner beliefs quietly detached from reality. Consider this. Have you ever told yourself you were fine while a trembling part of you whispered otherwise? Have you ever said you weren't lonely while your heart tightened with longing for a hand on your shoulder? Have you ever said you weren't afraid while your breath grew shallow? Have you ever said you weren't sad while tears gathered behind your eyes? All these sentences, I'm fine, but I'm not really fine. I'm not lonely, but inside I feel empty. I'm not sad, but my heart feels heavy, are the living psychological versions of Moore's paradox. And here, the paradox is no longer a logical game. It becomes the soft confession of an inner life divided against itself. Wittgenstein once said in Philosophical Investigations, "The difficulty is to realize the groundlessness of our believing. The greatest difficulty is not seeing the truth, but seeing that many of our beliefs have no firm ground. Humans can know something is true and still not believe it, and we can believe something is true even when we know it is not. That is why we often cling to beliefs that hurt us. That is why we so often deny our own emotions. That is why we turn away from truth even when it stands right in front of us. Feel this slowly. There is a delicate but profound gap between knowing and believing. Knowing belongs to the mind. Believing belongs to the heart. And the heart does not always follow the mind. Most of the time it walks in the opposite direction. A person can know they are loved, yet not believe they deserve it. A person can know they are capable, yet not believe they are good enough. A person can know a past wound is healed, yet not believe they are safe. A person can know they should let go, yet not believe they will survive the letting go. This separation, this misalignment between cognition and belief, is the quiet source of human suffering. It is like standing under the rain, feeling each cold drop touch your skin while whispering to yourself, "No, it is not raining." And when truth and belief drift apart, inner harmony disappears. Aristotle said that humans are only happy when they live in accordance with their true nature. But how can one live in accordance with oneself when the self is divided? How can one live truthfully when one believes the opposite of what one knows? How can one feel peace when the mind speaks in one direction while the heart trembles in another? Let this voice wash over you like warm water, allowing you to see something gently. Every person carries inner paradoxes, cracks between knowing and believing, shadows between logic and emotion, sentences spoken aloud that the heart cannot yet touch. Human beings are not rational machines, as Aristotle once envisioned. We are flowing rivers of unnamed feelings, unresolved fears, unspoken wants. And for this reason, More's paradox is not simply a philosophical curiosity. It is a portrait of the human condition. But here is the beautiful part. These paradoxes are not meant to frighten us. They are meant to help us understand ourselves, to soften us toward our own wounds, to show us that perhaps we have been living inside sentences our hearts never agreed to. Perhaps we whisper, "I'm fine," only because we fear touching the truth, "I'm hurting." Perhaps we say, "I don't need anyone," only because we once felt abandoned. Perhaps we say, "I'm not sad," only because we fear being seen as fragile. It is raining, but I don't believe that it is raining. When we look at this paradox with gentleness, we stop blaming ourselves. We begin asking, what makes me afraid to believe what I already know? And that moment, that first soft moment of honesty, is where healing begins. Perhaps truth is not as painful as we imagine. Perhaps the pain comes from refusing to look at it. Socrates taught that a life unexamined is not worth living. More shows that an unexamined belief divides the self. Aristotle tells us that the purpose of existence is in a harmony. And now, More's paradox reveals that to achieve that harmony, we must dare to see the places where we say things we do not truly believe, where the heart and the mind no longer stand on the same side. And as you lie in the softness of the night, allow yourself one small truth. Just one, a truth you know but have not yet believed. It might be, "I'm tired," or "I need love," or "I've been hurting more than I admitted," or "I deserve something good," or "I'm strong enough to let go." And as belief begins to step closer to truth, you will feel your inner world become whole again, like two rivers finally meeting and merging into one. From part 14, where we witness the gentle contradictions within the human heart, the journey will drift softly into part 15. The liar, paradox, and self-reference loops, where truth, falsehood, and self-reflection begin to spiral into one another, like mirrors endlessly reflecting themselves, revealing yet another depth in how we understand and misunderstand our own inner world. As the gentle reflections from part 14 on More's paradox continue to dissolve quietly into the deeper layers of your mind, like the final ripples settling after a soft touch on the surface of a night-lit lake, you may begin to sense clearly that human beings do not merely live within contradictions between what they know and what they believe, but drift through delicate loops woven by language and consciousness themselves, where truth and falsehood no longer stand apart, but spiral into one another like two intertwining strands of smoke. And from that very foundation, where inner conflict has become a familiar companion, the journey carries us into part 15, the liar, paradox, and self-reference loops. An ancient yet hauntingly modern paradox in which a single self-contradicting sentence can collapse the entire structure of human logic, compelling us to look more deeply into the fragile nature of perception. Let your breath fall slowly, like a leaf gliding down through a silent space, and allow your mind to open like a doorway into the stillness of the deep night, where every word feels like a soft footprint upon the quiet ground. The liar paradox is contained in a single sentence. This sentence is false. If the sentence is true, then it must be false. But if it is false, then it must be true. And so the statement collapses into an endless, self-referential whirlpool with no exit, shattering the consistency that logic depends upon. This paradox traces back to ancient Greece, through the tale of Epimenides the Cretan, who claimed that all Cretans are liars. If he tells the truth, then Cretans are not liars. But if he lies, then cretins are not liars. What began as a playful statement became a puzzle that has troubled philosophers, linguists, mathematicians, and logicians for centuries. Bertrand Russell once sighed in The Principles of Mathematics. The liar paradox is one of the most dangerous obstacles to logical thought. Why can such a simple sentence create so much disruption? Because it does not speak about the world, it speaks about itself. It turns inward, it bends back upon its own form, it reflects itself in a circle with no beginning and no end. And no matter how intelligent we are, we become unsettled when confronted with something that has no stable ground to stand on. Yet the true depth of this paradox does not lie in the sentence itself. It lies in what it reveals about us. Human beings resemble this sentence. We too create self-referential loops, the stories we tell about ourselves, the beliefs through which we interpret our own existence. The thoughts we believe are objective truths, but are merely reflections of the very mind attempting to understand itself. Consider this slowly. How many times have you felt unworthy, inadequate, not beautiful enough, not strong enough, and believe these things not because the world told you so, but because you told yourself so? You become the one who judges yourself, and then you believe the judgment as if it came from truth itself. You say, "I have no value," and you believe it because you were the one who said it. This is a self-reference loop, a cycle where a thought about yourself creates a belief, and that belief reinforces the original thought. Sometimes the loop is gentle and empowering. I will make it through. I'm growing stronger. But often, it becomes a quiet lie repeated until it hardens into the foundation of who we think we are. I never succeed. I don't deserve happiness. I'm always wrong. And as with Moore's paradox, these sentences do not always arise from truth, yet the mind clings to them with strange loyalty. In Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus, Wittgenstein wrote, "A proposition cannot assert itself to be false. A statement cannot declare its own falsity without collapsing the very logic that supports it." The same is true for human beings. When we define ourselves through beliefs that wound us, the mind is drawn into a loop where it can no longer distinguish essence from illusion. Let this awareness settle inside you like the warmth of a small candle. Self-reference loops do not only exist in philosophical language, they exist in the quiet, private language of the heart. When you tell yourself, "I'm not good enough," that is a loop. When you think, "I will fail," that is a loop. When you erase yourself because of past experiences, that too is a loop, and none of these loops stand on solid ground. They exist only because you believe them. And here is the beautiful part. Just like the liar paradox, a loop can be broken by a single small act, recognizing that it is a loop. Once you see its nature, it loses its power. When you realize that "I'm not good enough" is merely a self-referential proposition, it becomes hollow. When you see that the belief is not grounded in reality but merely in your own repetition, it becomes lighter. And then you can replace it with something new, not a lie, but a gentler truth. I'm learning to become myself. I've gone farther than I thought. I deserve what is good. Not because the world said so, but because you now see that every belief is constructed from what you repeat to yourself. A loop can wound you, but a loop can also heal you. From part 15, you may feel a soft truth spreading through you. Logic may collapse, but the heart is always capable of reforming itself. And what makes human beings so quietly beautiful is not the perfection of their reasoning, but their ability to look tenderly at their own contradictions and smile at the mystery of being a sentence forever trying to understand itself. And as you lie here in the gentle darkness, Listening to these words drift through you like wind moving through night leaves, you may sense that you have already stepped through a doorway of awareness where self-contradiction is no longer frightening, but becomes an invitation to explore the deeper architecture of your inner world. From here, the journey flows into part 16, the court paradox, where logic is not only broken by self-reference, but by closed conditional loops, circles of reasoning where truth becomes falsehood and falsehood becomes truth depending on how we look. Another quiet path of wisdom awaits you in this soft and tender night. As the gentle reflections from part 15 on the liar paradox and self-reference loops continue to settle softly within your mind, like a thin mist resting over a still lake, you may feel clearly that human beings do not merely live within self-referential loops of their own thoughts, but also become entangled in more intricate webs, logical structures that seem solid at first glance, yet collapse like sand the moment a single condition shifts. From that delicate sense of fragility, the path opens softly into part 16, the court paradox, a classical puzzle in philosophical logic where a seemingly straightforward lawsuit transforms into an endless circle of conditions and conclusions, where both sides are simultaneously right and wrong, and where truth belongs to neither but hides instead within the misty layers between them. Allow your breath to slow just a little, your eyelids to fall gently like wooden doors closing in silence, and let this narration guide you into a story both curious and familiar, like a dim lantern leading you through quiet corridors of the mind. The court paradox begins with a deceptively simple situation. A law teacher agrees to train a student for free under one condition. The student will pay only after he wins his first case. When the lessons end, the student avoids going to court, knowing that if he never wins a case, he will never need to pay. The teacher sues him, and here the paradox unfolds. The teacher argues, "If I win this lawsuit, you must pay because the court will have ruled that you lost. If you win this lawsuit, you must also pay because this will be your first victory." The student replies, "If I lose this case, I still don't have to pay. The contract says I only pay after my first win, and I have not won anything. But if I win this case, then the verdict must be that I owe you nothing." Thus, no matter how the court rules, both outcomes lead to contradictory results. A lawsuit in which both sides are correct, and at the same time both are wrong. This is the essence of a paradoxical loop. A closed circuit of conditions where a conclusion depends on a condition, and the condition depends on the conclusion. Logic becomes trapped within its own architecture, like a serpent swallowing its own tail. The Ouroboros, a symbol of self-creations and self-destruction, intertwined. And as you listen to this story, you may begin to see that such paradoxes are not limited to philosophy or logic. They exist within human psychology, within emotional loops, within internal debates, where sometimes even you cannot tell what you want, what you believe, or which part of yourself you should trust. Consider this gently. How many times in life have you fallen into something like the court paradox, not in an external courtroom, but in the silent courtroom within your heart? When you blame yourself for your feelings, though another part of you knows that feelings are natural. When you long to heal, but fear touching the wound, wanting and not wanting healing at the same time. When you need someone yet withdraw because you've been hurt before. Craving connection while fearing it. When you want to be loved but fear being seen too clearly. Stepping forward yet stepping back in the same breath. These loops resemble the dispute between teacher and student. Every step you take leads to two opposite results, trapping you between them, unable to move forward or return. Bertrand Russell, who spent much of his life studying logic and paradoxes, once wrote in The Problems of Philosophy, Every advance in logic reveals a deeper layer of confusion. Each step toward clarity unveils another layer of chaos beneath it. And human beings, creatures of both reason and emotion, live within this chaos every day. The court paradox mirrors how psychological conditions can lock us in place. Wanting love but fearing pain. Wanting peace but fearing the release of old memories. Wanting to grow but fearing the loss of familiar safety. Wanting to trust but being pulled back by past wounds. Each belief you hold immediately disrupts the condition of another belief. Each decision meets its own inner contradiction. Feel this softly. Humans do not contradict themselves because they are weak, but because they carry too many conditions within. Conditions for being loved, conditions for being happy, conditions for being forgiven, conditions for being themselves. When these conditions collide, you enter a loop like the insoluble lawsuit, where every choice is right according to one condition and wrong according to another. The paradox, then, is not something to fear, but a mirror helping you see yourself more clearly. You are living by conditions that may no longer serve you. Some conditions are echoes of the past. Some are dust from old fears. Some are shields once necessary, but now too heavy to carry. When you see this, you begin to understand that the solution to the court paradox lies not in finding the perfect argument, but in stepping out of the loop entirely. As Wittgenstein wrote in the Tractatus, the solution to the problem is to see the world rightly, not to change the world, but to change the vantage point. When you release the unnecessary conditions, you free yourself from your own loops. When you say, "I deserve peace without needing to earn it," the loop dissolves. When you say, "I have the right to love without being perfect," the loop opens. When you say, "I do not need to be strong at all times to be worthy of care," the loop sinks softly into the background. Let this narration guide you into a gentle truth. You do not have to resolve every contradiction in your life through logic. You simply need to step out of the conditions that hold you captive. The court paradox teaches that sometimes the solution is not a decision, but the release of the very structure that keeps the decision impossible. And as you lie here in the velvet soft quiet of the night, try seeing yourself with tender acceptance. Perhaps you are carrying a loop you have not yet noticed, but you can set it down the moment you recognize its nature. You do not need to win, nor do you need to lose. You only need to step out. From part 16, the journey flows gently into part 17. Brainwashing, where we move beyond logical paradoxes and into deeper psychological mechanisms, where thoughts, memories, beliefs, and identity can be bent like heated metal, where mental freedom is no longer a given, but something profoundly human that must be consciously reclaimed. As the fading echoes of part 16 linger softly within your mind, where the court paradox revealed loops of logic so delicate that both right and wrong dissolved like thin mist, you may begin to feel that paradoxes are not confined to philosophical texts, but unfold quietly within the hidden corners of the human heart. And from the place where those loops have just dispersed like slow floating dust in a dim beam of light, we now step toward a deeper region, a place where loops do not merely confuse thought, but can make a person lose themselves entirely if they are not awake. From that threshold, the journey of the night guides us gently into part 17, the mechanics of brainwashing, a subject that seems heavy at first glance, yet under the soft light of introspection becomes a mirror through which we understand the fragility of the mind and, at the same time, the quiet strength of its capacity to awaken. Let your breath slow as though the wind has ceased over a still lake, and let your mind open like an old wooden door easing into the night. For what is about to be spoken is not meant to frighten you, but to help you see clearly the tender nature of consciousness, so you may become calmer and freer within your own awareness. Brainwashing sounds like a harsh word, but in truth it is not sorcery or darkness. It is the result of three very human psychological movements: isolation, confusion, and reconstruction of belief. Not only in extremist groups, not only in wartime, but even in unhealthy relationships, toxic environments, and in the stories we repeat about ourselves. Each of these can create mechanisms resembling brainwashing. Not to control people, but to reveal how delicate the mind becomes when it loses the light of awareness. Let us begin with the first step: isolation. In psychological warfare, isolation means removing a person from their community, from familiar sounds, from the warmth that makes them feel safe. But in everyday life, isolation is far more subtle. It is when you believe no one truly understands you, when you feel your emotions are too strange to share, when you withdraw because you fear judgment, when you endure in silence because you believe your vulnerability is unacceptable. Such isolation can happen even in a crowded room. Some loneliness does not come from physical distance, but from distance inside the soul. And within that soft form of isolation, a second movement arises almost inevitably: confusion. When you lose your emotional anchor, the mind begins to sway like a small boat drifting in fog. Beliefs that once felt stable begin to blur. Certainties begin to crumble, and in that moment, the human being becomes most vulnerable, because confusion makes you lose your sense of I. Nietzsche once wrote in Beyond Good and Evil, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. A person who knows their reason for living can endure nearly anything. But a person who loses that why, who no longer knows what they believe, who no longer feels coherence within themselves, becomes easily pulled into the beliefs of others, or worse, into beliefs that harm themselves." Feel this slowly, deeply. Confusion is not a sign of weakness. It is the natural response of a mind that has lost contact with its inner truth. If you have endured deep pain, if you have been betrayed, if things you trusted collapsed right before you, your mind will become confused. It no longer knows what is safe. It no longer knows what is real and what is imagined. And that is the moment in which a person can be guided, not by others, but by their own fear. From within that confusion, the third movement of brainwashing takes root: reconstruction of belief. But not free belief, imposed belief. Historically, this is when someone isolated and confused accepts any narrative offered simply to escape uncertainty. But in personal life, this is far subtler. It happens when you begin believing you are unworthy, when you believe you have no value, when you believe you are not enough, when you believe you cannot change. These beliefs do not come from truth. They come from fear, from old wounds, from things someone once told you, from the self-referential loops we explored in Part 15. And once belief is reconstructed this way, a person slowly loses themselves. Yet let this story become gentle here, for truth always has two faces. If belief can be reshaped negatively, it can also be reshaped healingly. And that begins the moment you see the mechanism, when you understand that isolation is not your nature, but a phase. Confusion is not an ending, but a passage, and negative beliefs are not truth, but temporary chapters. In Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl wrote, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. Everything may be taken from a person except their freedom to choose how they meet the moment. That awareness is the antidote to manipulation. When you see how the mind is influenced, you begin reclaiming your inner freedom. Let this move through you like warm water. You cannot be brainwashed if you do not surrender your inner light. You cannot be controlled if you continue to ask questions like Socrates. You cannot be blinded by illusion if you dare to look at shadows like Plato. And you cannot be swallowed by psychological loops if you recognize them, as we did in parts 15 and 16. Brainwashing is not just the story of the wicked controlling the vulnerable. It is a mirror reflecting the moments we forget our worth, a reminder that the mind can be wounded, but it can also recover, a truth that belief can be distorted, but it can also be reborn. And as you lie here in the velvet soft quiet of night, place your hand gently over your heart and ask yourself one whisper, soft question. Which of my beliefs do not belong to me? One question only, softly. No need for an instant answer. Awareness alone is enough. By seeing it, you have already stepped out of every loop of control. And from part 17, where we recognize both the fragility and the quiet power of the mind, our journey will drift softly into part 18, the anatomy of gaslighting, where we will move deeper into the mechanisms that make a person doubt their own truth, and where, just as gently, we will learn how to return to intuition and inner clarity. As the gentle resonance of part 17 lingers within your mind, like the thin wisp of smoke left behind by a candle just extinguished, you may begin to sense something subtle rising that the human mind, fragile as it may be, has always longed for the light of awareness. And among the mechanisms that shake us, from isolation to confusion, there exists a particularly delicate form of manipulation, one in which a person is not only separated from the world, but separated from themselves. As though someone quietly tilts the mirror of your inner self, making the reflection blur, distort, drift away from what is true. From that threshold, the night's journey brings us softly into part 18, the anatomy of gaslighting, where stories of belief, memory, and perception are viewed through the light of philosophy and healing. Let your breath slow, flowing evenly like warm water, and let this voice open within you not anxiety, but understanding. Because what we are about to enter is not meant to weigh your heart down, but to gently touch the place deep inside where you learn to believe in yourself again. Gaslighting, the psychological manipulation that makes a person doubt their memory, their emotions, their perception, does not begin like a storm. It begins like a breeze, a very soft breeze, so soft that you do not notice it is shifting the entire landscape. It begins with the denial of what you see, what you hear, what you feel. It begins with phrases that seem harmless. You remembered wrong. I never said that. You're too sensitive. Why are you overthinking this? You're imagining it. These words sound like explanations, but repeated long enough, they become precise cuts into your trust in yourself. What is taken from you is not the truth, but the ability to recognize truth. Gaslighting operates through a simple structure: denial, distortion, replacement. First, the manipulator denies what you perceive. Then they cast a haze over your certainty, making you believe the problem lies in you. And finally, they replace your internal perception with their version of truth until you begin believing that your inner signals are wrong. No one redraws your world faster than someone who makes you doubt your own reality. In the Ethics, Spinoza wrote, "No matter how thin you slice it, there will always be two sides. Every truth has two sides, and gaslighting exploits exactly that. It disconnects you from the inner side, the side of feeling, intuition, embodied truth, leaving you only with the outer side, the one someone else has painted for you. But what is truth? Truth is not only what happens outside. Truth is also the way your body responds to it. It is the beat of your heart when something touches you. It is the intuition you cannot explain logically. And gaslighting survives by making you believe all of that is wrong. That you are not allowed to trust your feelings, not allowed to trust your intuition, not allowed to trust your memory, and eventually not allowed to trust yourself. Let yourself feel this slowly. Memory, as Part 10 taught us, is imperfect, but that does not mean your memory is untrue. Emotions can be difficult to name, but that does not mean your emotions are wrong. Intuition can be subtle, but that does not make it inaccurate. Gaslighting convinces you that uncertainty means error. But the truth is, humans always live with uncertainty, and that uncertainty is part of being human. Gaslighting becomes dangerous not because it is powerful, but because it is gradual, like a single drop falling again and again on the same spot, eventually carving into stone. It does not make you doubt everything at once. It makes you doubt a little each day. Your memory, your emotion, your reactions, your needs, your pain, your sensitivity, until one day you look inward and no longer recognize yourself. Wittgenstein wrote in On Certainty, doubt itself rests on a foundation of belief. Doubt arises only where belief has been shaken. And gaslighting works by striking the place where belief begins, your ability to believe yourself. When you can no longer believe your own mind, you leave the door open for any truth someone else wants to give you. But let this voice guide you into another truth, a truth as soft as evening after rain. Gaslighting cannot erase your essence. It only creates fog between you and your essence. Fog can be thick, but not permanent. All it takes is a single ray, a moment of awareness, a brief inner whisper that says, "No, what I feel is real," and the fog begins to thin. Truth does not disappear. It only gets covered. And here lies the most beautiful part. The very ability to recognize gaslighting is its antidote. When you see that the haze comes from outside, you reconnect with the inside. When you see that your emotions are not the problem but the signal, you begin believing yourself again. When you see that your memory does not have to be perfect to be valid, you free yourself from invisible judgment. In Meditations, Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. You hold sovereignty over your mind, even when someone tries to bend it. And the moment you remember this, healing begins, not through resistance, but through return." Gaslighting often makes people feel small, but tonight, see it as a quiet lesson from the universe about awareness, that you were not made to believe every voice outside you, but to listen to the softest voice within. That voice has been denied, questioned, doubted, but it has never disappeared. It has only been waiting for you to return. Allow your body to soften in this moment and whisper gently inside yourself, "My feelings are real." Just that. No judgment, no confrontation, just one small truth. But sometimes, one small truth is enough to collapse an entire structure of manipulation. When you learn to trust your own experience again, you step out of every form of gaslighting, not only from others, but from the old stories within you that once made you doubt your own reality. And from that soft return, our night's journey will carry us into Part 19, Love Bombing, where we explore a mechanism that moves in the opposite direction of gaslighting, not making you doubt yourself, but making you feel overwhelmingly adored until you lose yourself in a different way. As the lingering resonance of Part 18 about the anatomy of gaslighting continues to drift through your mind, like a thin layer of mist settling over the surface of a mirror, slowly returning to clarity, you may feel something becoming unmistakably clear. The deepest wounds of the human heart do not always come from rejection or denial, but sometimes from what appears most beautiful. Gaslighting makes you doubt your perception, but there is an even subtler mechanism, one in which the heart is guided not by fear, but by sweetness, by overflowing affection, by tender words, by luminous promises that seem almost divine, only to be pulled away abruptly, leaving behind an emptiness as dark and bottomless as a well with no end. And from that fragile threshold, where love can become an instrument, the night's journey leads us into Part 19. The trap of love bombing, where light is not always light and love is not always love. Let your breath soften, let your mind open like a wooden door gently ajar in the late afternoon, and allow this voice to guide you deeper into one of the softest yet sharpest psychological paradoxes of the human heart. Love bombing, an assault of affection. Sounds sweet because haven't we all dreamed of a love that descends like a rain of blossoms? The constant messages, the endless praise, the tender attention, the promises bright enough to make your heart tremble. Humans long to be loved, to be seen, to be cherished. We open ourselves to gentleness the way flowers open before the first touch of sunlight. And because of that, love bombing does not begin with suspicion, it begins with blooming. But as with many things in life, when something arrives too fast and too abundantly, it no longer carries the shape of love. It becomes a tool. Love bombing is when someone uses excess to create emotional dependence. The overflowing affection, the intense compliments, the dense gestures of care. All of it makes you feel special, chosen, irreplaceable. And because your heart carries quiet spaces of longing, you fill those spaces with this sudden light. It feels like standing under a warm shower of radiance, unexpected, breathtaking, making you believe you've finally found what you have long hoped for. In the Symposium, Plato wrote of love as a force that draws the soul toward absolute beauty. But love bombing does not draw us toward beauty. It draws us toward the person creating it, not to make us free, but to make us dependent. Because the heart of it lies in what comes next, withdrawal. When the other suddenly pulls back, suddenly grows cold, suddenly disappears, your heart collapses like a foot missing a step in the dark. And in that sudden emptiness, you start chasing the warmth that once enveloped you, like a child reaching for a familiar blanket that is no longer there. This is the core of love bombing. It creates a pattern of intermittent reinforcement, the psychological mechanism that makes the mind addicted to rare but intense moments of affection. When the care is withdrawn, you do not merely lose attention, you lose the safety you believed you had finally found. And in your longing to feel that light again, you become more vulnerable, more forgiving, more willing to abandon your own boundaries. Spinoza wrote in Ethics, "We are driven by our emotions far more than by reason. Humans are guided by emotion, not logic, and love bombing strikes where emotion is most tender, the need to be loved." When the mind becomes caught between too much and nothing at all, it will cling to even the faintest warmth, just to fill the void left behind. Love bombing does not happen because you are weak. It happens because you can feel deeply. The people most susceptible to love bombing are those whose hearts are wider, more sensitive, more open to connection than others. And for that reason, they feel pain more intensely when the initial light reveals itself to be a trap wrapped in tenderness. but let this pass through you like a cool, healing breeze. Love that is not real will never make you whole. It will only make you lose yourself. True affection does not create dependence. It creates freedom. Real love does not make you fear tomorrow. It gives you peace, whether someone stays or goes. Real love does not arrive like a storm and vanish like wind. It comes like dawn, slow, warm, steady, always present. Ask yourself, with the gentleness of Socrates, is what I received love, or the projection of a hidden longing? You do not need to answer immediately. Let the question rest in the quiet darkness. Let it settle. Let it breathe. When you are ready, the answer will find you. And let another truth, softer still, wrap around you. You deserve a love that does not make you fear its disappearance. You deserve hands that do not let go on the days you are fragile. You deserve a light born of sincerity, not of fireworks that burn bright only to leave smoke behind. In Letters to Lucilius, Seneca wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. A person is not impoverished by lack, but by believing they are never enough." And in love, fullness does not come from grand gestures, but from steadiness, honesty, and presence. You do not need a love that arrives like fireworks. You need a love that stays like a star, small but never fading. If you have ever walked through the experience of love bombing, know this: your heart was not wrong. It was simply awakened by something that looked like love, but was not love. And you have the right to walk away. The right to reclaim your equilibrium. The right to choose a kind of love that brings peace instead of fear. And as you lie here in the quiet of the night, whisper softly to yourself, I deserve a love that does not take my freedom. Just that. This sentence is like lighting a small lamp within your chest. It does not need to burn brightly. It only needs to illuminate your path. From part 19, where we saw the trap hidden beneath overwhelming affection, the night's journey will carry you gently into part 20, intermittent reinforcement addiction, where we will explore the psychological mechanism behind emotional addiction and learn why humans cling to things that hurt them, simply because of the rare moments that make them feel loved. As the echoes of part 19 about love bombing continue to dissolve softly in your mind, like a thin mist lingering over the surface of a lake after a long night, you may feel a very subtle movement rising beneath your thoughts. That what keeps the human heart tethered is not love itself, but the oscillation between fullness and emptiness, between warmth and coldness, between being lifted up and being dropped, between stay and vanish. And it is from this trembling rhythm, the rhythm that makes the heart both fearful and yearning, that the night's journey leads us into part 20, intermittent reinforcement addiction, where unpredictable affection becomes an invisible thread binding the emotions, making us addicted not to a person, but to the feeling of being loved at the exact moment we are nearly broken. Like a small flicker of light appearing right at the deepest point of darkness. Intermittent reinforcement, described by B.F. Skinner, is a pattern of unpredictable rewards. You never know when affection will return, and this not knowing is what makes the mind cling harder, hope more intensely, and eventually become more addicted than if affection arrived consistently. Because the human brain releases dopamine not when it receives love, but when it anticipates love. It becomes addicted to expectation, to uncertainty, to the fleeting spark of hope. And the most damaging relationships often follow this precise cycle. Warm exactly when you're about to leave. Cold when you begin to trust, then warm again just as you start pulling away, like an emotional hook catching on to the deepest wounds of the heart. Nietzsche once wrote in Human, All Too Human, "Hope is the worst of evils, for it prolongs the torment of man." And in the world of inconsistent affection, it is not the coldness that hurts most. It is the hope. The hope that they will return to the way they were in the beginning. The hope that those rare warm moments are evidence of something real. The hope that if you just try a little harder, love a little more, endure a little longer, everything will be okay. But that hope does not come from love. It comes from waiting, and waiting is the most silent way a person can lose themselves. When rewards come unpredictably, the mind clings to them the way a dessert clings to drops of water. Never enough to quench the thirst, but always enough to keep the longing alive. And because of this, those who hurt us do not need to be consistently kind. They only need to be kind at the exact moment we are falling apart. The heart reconnects instantly, not because of love, but because dopamine mistakes hope for truth. But let a soft truth glide through your chest. You are not addicted to them. You are addicted to their good version, addicted to the brief moments they made you feel loved, addicted to the feeling of being seen after days of being ignored, addicted to the warmth that returns after long silence like an unexpected reward. But real love does not make you addicted. Real love does not make you guess. Real love does not shrink you, does not make you small, does not require you to contort yourself to fit inside someone else's instability. In Letters to a Young Poet, Rilke wrote, "No feeling is final, not even attachment, meaning you can step out without fighting, without anger, without slamming any doors. You simply have to see the mechanism, and awareness becomes the first step toward freedom. And as you breathe slowly in the gentle darkness of the night, try whispering softly within yourself, 'I deserve consistent care.' That single sentence is a small piece of light, not needing to be bright, only needing to be enough to show you the path out of old emotional loops. And from this tender awareness, our journey will drift gently into part 21, where another form of control appears, one not rooted in hope, but in guilt. Guilt tripping, a subtle shadow capable of binding the heart even more deeply than any other form of manipulation. As the remnants of part 20 on intermittent reinforcement addiction continue to settle softly in your mind, like a thin veil of mist lingering after a long night, as you move past the push-pull rhythm of inconsistent affection and begin to recognize that what the human heart clings to is not love itself, but the hope of love, the desperate craving that turns the heart into a creature addicted to anticipation. You may start to see another layer of psychology, thinner but deeper, one that does not strike like a sudden wave of warmth, nor plunge you into abrupt coldness, but slips quietly inside like a thin thread of smoke, light enough to feel harmless, yet able to tighten around the soul in ways you do not notice. Guilt tripping, the art of controlling through guilt. From the oscillation of having and losing, the night's journey now brings you into a realm where the tether is not hope, but the feeling of wrongdoing, where people are led not through presence, but through subtle suggestions. If you loved me, you would. If you really cared, you'd have, "I did this for you, you're hurting me." Sentences spoken without volume, yet heavier than any accusation. Guilt tripping makes a person tie themselves into knots, not because they fear someone will leave, but because they fear they themselves are the reason someone is hurting. But before we step deeper into this mechanism, let your breath slow just a little, light as a leaf drifting across water, because none of this is meant to make you heavy. It is meant to free the parts of your mind you've carried too long without knowing how to name. Guilt tripping works through a principle both simple and devastatingly effective, shifting emotional responsibility from the person causing harm to the person feeling it. In a healthy relationship, Emotions belong to each individual. But within a manipulative dynamic, the manipulator makes you believe that their emotions are your responsibility. Their anger is your fault. Their disappointment is your failure. Their dissatisfaction is your shortcoming. And even their unhappiness somehow belongs to you. A small sentence, a sad glance, a perfectly timed sigh, each can become a tiny needle pressing into your heart, making you feel you must do more, be better, give further, sacrifice deeper. In Letters from a Stoic, Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Guilt tripping strikes exactly there. It makes you imagine sins that do not exist and then punishes you for them. That is why guilt tripping does not come through shouting. It comes through whispering, not through direct blame, through implication, not through grand gestures, through tiny shifts. And because it is small, it seeps most easily into sensitive hearts, into the souls of those who tend to blame themselves, who want deeply to make others happy, even at the cost of their own well-being. The particular cruelty of guilt tripping lies in how it distorts the idea of responsibility. You begin to feel guilty even when you have done nothing wrong. You apologize for things that were never yours to carry. You try to fix what was never yours to fix. You shoulder someone else's sadness as though it were your own burden. And slowly, you start using someone else's emotions as a compass for your actions. Kierkegaard wrote in The Sickness Unto Death, "The self is a relation which relates itself to itself. The self is the connection we return to within ourselves. But when guilt tripping takes hold, you no longer return to yourself. You return to them, to their feelings, to their expectations, to their needs. And in doing so, you lose the anchor within. Let yourself feel this gently. Guilt tripping is not control through force. It is control through heaviness. A person does not say, 'You must do this, but if you don't, I'll be so sad.' They do not say, 'You were wrong, but you disappointed me.' They do not say, 'This is your fault, but I've done everything for you, and you can't even do this for me.' And through that delicate danger, your heart becomes conditioned to believe you are never enough, never good enough, never worthy enough. But let a soft truth fall into you like the glow of a small candle. Guilt is not a measure of love. Someone making you feel guilty does not mean you have done something wrong. Someone suffering does not mean you caused their suffering. Their emotions belong to them, not as a verdict on you. In Meditations, Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. You do not have control over someone else's emotions, and no one has the right to demand that you take responsibility for them. If there has ever been a moment when you felt you were walking on eggshells within a relationship, afraid that anything you say or do might make someone sad or angry or disappointed, know that this is not love. This is control. Real love does not require you to abandon your own peace to maintain someone else's. Real love does not make you afraid of causing hurt. Real love allows honesty without fear. Real love does not demand constant sacrifice. It nourishes through willingness, not pressure. Try whispering softly to yourself in this moment. My feelings belong to me. Their feelings belong to them. I'm not responsible for what is not mine. That sentence is like a small beam of light dispersing a psychological fog that has settled for years. It doesn't need to be loud, it only needs to be true. Guilt tripping cannot survive once you see its mechanism. When you stand firmly on the ground of your inner self, you're no longer pulled off balance by someone else's emotions. And from this tender clarity, the journey of the night carries you gently into part 22, the scarcity effect, where we will explore how humans are drawn not to things of genuine value, but to what appears rare, slipping away about to be lost. Another illusion of the psyche that drives us to choices fueled by instinct rather than true peace. As the echoes of part 21 on guilt-tripping continue to drift softly through your mind, like a thin wisp of smoke refusing to dissolve after a long emotional story, where you have just seen how guilt can be used like an invisible thread to hold someone's heart in place, you begin to realize that human beings are not only controlled by heavy emotions, but also drawn into delicate illusions of value and desire. And from the intersection between guilt and lack, the night's journey carries you into part 22. The scarcity principle, one of the most powerful psychological forces, where anything scarce, limited, difficult to attain, whether real or fabricated, becomes so irresistibly attractive that we lose clarity. Let your breath slow like a moonlit lake. Let your mind settle like a leaf drifting in the night air, and let this voice guide you into the deeper folds of human psychology, where the simplest things shape our behavior and emotions with tremendous force. The scarcity principle is not merely an economic or marketing concept. It is a survival instinct, an ancient call from the days when humans lived in rough caves and anything rare had to be protected, seized, held, because opportunities never came twice. But in the modern world, this ancient mechanism no longer protects us. It pulls us toward things that are not meant for us, makes us chase relationships that cannot give us peace, makes us overvalue people who appear only half present in our lives, near one moment, distant the next, tricking us into believing they are precious simply because they are difficult to grasp. Robert Cialdini wrote in Influence, "People want more of what they can have less of." Human beings crave what they cannot easily obtain, and that is why someone becomes more attractive when they become distant, why something becomes desirable the moment it is limited, why a closed door pulls at us more fiercely than an open one ever could. The scarcity principle whispers into the unconscious, if you don't seize this now, you will lose it. And it is the fear of loss, not love, not genuine desire, that becomes the strongest motivator. In Being and Time, Heidegger describes human existence as a constant dialogue with absence. We are thrown into the world and thrown into possibilities, and it is these possibilities, the things not yet ours, the things nearly lost, the things just out of reach, that exert the deepest pull. When someone is unclear, our mind inflates their value. When they are distant, we imagine depth. When they appear rarely, we mistake inconsistency for mystery. When they do not care for us, we convince ourselves that they must be special simply because they are unpredictable. But the truth is, the brain is responding to scarcity, not to that person. Like a child longing for the toy placed on the highest shelf, not because it is the most beautiful, but because it cannot be reached. Let yourself feel this gently. How many times have you loved someone not because they matched you, but because they were far from you? How many times have you held on to a relationship, not because it brought you joy, but because you feared losing it? How many times have you exhausted yourself chasing someone simply because they drifted away and returned at intervals, making their presence feel rare? When something is always available, we take it for granted. But when it is almost gone, we suddenly perceive it in a brighter, more urgent light. And that shift is exactly where we confuse scarcity with value. But let this voice guide you to a softer truth. Real love is not precious because it is rare, but because it is genuine. Things that arrive consistently may not give you butterflies, but they give you peace. Things that endure may not make your heart race, but they make your heart stay. People who are sincere may not dazzle with unpredictability, but they nourish you with steadiness. Scarcity makes you believe that the hard to get must be desirable, but that is only true for minds still aching for safety. A healthy heart does not crave the rare, it craves the real. A mature soul does not seek what is difficult to attain, it seeks what brings it peace. Nietzsche wrote in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, "That which is rare is not necessarily valuable. Rare does not mean worthy. What you need, in love, in life, in your choices, is not what is scarce, but what is right." Let your mind open like a soft blossom in the night and whisper gently to yourself, "I am not drawn to scarcity. I move toward abundance." This sentence is like warm water dissolving the psychological illusions that scarcity once cast over your heart. The scarcity principle does not vanish when you see it, but it loses its power over you. When you understand that someone does not become more valuable simply because they are distant, you reclaim your freedom to choose. When you understand that scarce does not always mean good, you find what truly fits you. When you understand that stability is its own kind of beauty, you begin to see the world with calmer, deeper, more mature eyes. And from this place of recognition, where illusions of value dissolve into stillness, the night's journey will gently carry you into part 23, Anchoring Bias, where we explore how the mind becomes locked onto the very first piece of information it receives, often blinding us from seeing the truth in its full form. Another step on the path of understanding yourself beneath the soft, healing light of night. As the gentle reflections from part 22 on the scarcity principle continue drifting softly through your mind, like the fragile glow of a candle that has not yet gone out, and as you begin to see how rarity, whether real or imagined, can distort our sense of value and make us chase after things never truly meant for us, you also start to recognize that the mind is not guided only by lack, but by something even more subtle, more silent, an invisible anchor dropped by the brain at the very moment we encounter something for the first time, pulling every judgment, every thought, every emotion in its direction long before we ever notice it. And from these deeper waters, the night carries us gently into part 23. Anchoring bias, one of the strongest cognitive biases in psychology, where the very first piece of information, whether accurate, flawed, complete, or distorted, becomes the anchor that makes us see the world not as it is, but as the first version we met. Let your breath sink into a slower, deeper rhythm, as if your hand were grazing the surface of a still lake, feeling each ripple unfold, for anchoring bias is not distant or abstract. It touches your life every day in the smallest decisions. When you hear the first price of an item, it becomes the benchmark you compare everything else to. When your first impression of someone is warm or cold, your mind immediately builds a frame around them. When you hear a story from one perspective, that version becomes the lens through which you interpret all their later actions. When someone says this person is wonderful or this person is dangerous, your mind quietly anchors itself to that narrative, making every observation afterward drift toward the direction set by that first suggestion. Daniel Kahneman, in Thinking Fast and Slow, wrote a short, piercing truth. Anchors affect your judgment, even when they are obviously irrelevant. Anchors shape your judgments even when you know they shouldn't. That is what makes anchoring bias so powerful. It does not wait for your permission. It makes you believe first and think later. Imagine meeting a new person. A single sentence you heard beforehand, "They're difficult to be around," or "They're very kind," instantly drops an anchor into your mind. From that moment on, every smile, every gesture, every word they say is interpreted through the weight of that anchor. If you are anchored toward the positive, you notice their goodness. If you are anchored toward the negative, you notice their flaws. We like to believe we are objective, yet we spend most of our lives looking at the world through anchors we never realized had been placed. And here is the strange part. Anchoring bias shapes not only how we see others, it shapes how we see ourselves. A single sentence from childhood, "You're not good at math," "You're too sensitive," "You're difficult," "You're not smart enough," can become an anchor for an entire lifetime. You grow up carrying that anchor, and every small failure becomes evidence that the anchor was right. Wittgenstein once wrote in Philosophical Investigations, "The limits of my language mean the limits of my world." The words given to us early in life become anchors that limit what we believe we are capable of. Anchoring bias becomes the root of long-lasting misjudgments. An excessive compliment makes you believe you must be perfect. A harsh criticism makes you believe you're always wrong. A painful memory convinces you the future will hurt too. A broken relationship convinces you that you are unworthy of love. But these are merely anchors, not truths. Let this voice drift through you slowly, like a breeze brushing across the surface of a night lake, and whisper to yourself, "How many of the things I believe about myself are nothing more than anchors someone else placed in me?" The question may stir something deep inside you, but it is the stirring of awakening, not fear. Anchoring bias is not a wound. It is simply the rope that kept your mind tied to one spot for too long. And like any anchor, it can be lifted. You do not need to break it, nor resent it. You only need to see it. You only need to recognize that a first impression is not a final truth. You only need to understand that someone else's words are not your definition. You only need to realize that your life extends far beyond whatever anchor someone dropped into your past. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "You see what your mind wants you to see." And anchoring bias is precisely what shapes what the mind wants to see before you even know you are looking. But once you become aware, the anchor loses its hold. You begin to look again. You begin to see the world not through assumptions, but through clarity. You see people not through stories, but through their actions. You see yourself not through the past, but through the present moment. Feel this gentle truth settling inside you. The first anchors may have set your direction, but they cannot dictate your destiny. You are free to change your perspective. You are free to lift the old anchor. You are free to drop a new one, an anchor of understanding, of confidence, of spaciousness, of peace. And from this place of renewed clarity, the night's journey will drift softly into part 24, Confirmation Bias, where we will see that not only do first impressions shape us, but the very things we want to believe shape the way we gather information, making us filter reality to defend our beliefs even when those beliefs hurt us. As the echoes of part 23 on anchoring bias continue to drift quietly across the surface of your mind, like pale moonlight lingering over a lake after a long night of reflection, you may begin to feel something very clear, that the human mind is not guided only by the first piece of information it receives, but by the beliefs it already carries. The beliefs we hold so tightly, as though letting them go would cause us to lose ourselves in the vastness of life. And from these invisible anchors that keep us standing in familiar places, the night's journey gently leads us into part 24, Confirmation Bias, where we do not search for truth, but search for confirmation of what we already believe, where we do not listen to understand, but listen to reinforce the old narratives within us, where we see the world not with open eyes, but through the thin, powerful filters of expectation, memory, and fear. Let your shoulders soften, let your breath fall deeper, and allow this voice to move through you like a warm breeze. For what we are entering is not a judgment of the mind, but a gentle recognition of the quiet mechanisms that have shaped us for so long. Confirmation bias is one of the most distorted mirrors the human mind uses every day. We do not search for information that challenges us, but for information that strengthens what we already believe. We do not desire truth. We desire to be right. We do not want to see the world as it is, but as we prefer it to be. This is not a flaw. It is instinct. Humans fear uncertainty. We fear the space between what I once believed and what must I believe now. And to avoid that internal fracture, the brain builds a fragile bridge by selecting its evidence, keeping what aligns with the old belief, discarding what contradicts it, and blurring anything that threatens the safety of our identity. Nietzsche once wrote in Beyond Good and Evil, "We hear only those questions for which we are in a position to find answers. We hear only what our existing beliefs can accommodate, and we turn away from anything that demands we change." Imagine walking into a dark room where a single lamp lights only one corner. You would see that corner clearly, and then assume that corner is the entire room. Confirmation bias acts like that lamp. It shines only on what we already believe, letting the rest of the truth fall into shadow. When you believe someone is good, you see goodness in the smallest gestures. When you believe someone is dangerous, every movement becomes suspect. When you believe you are not enough, every tiny mistake becomes proof of that belief. A missed step, a cold glance, a moment of silence. And when you believe you are unlovable, every moment of distance becomes a reminder. The mind does not seek truth. It seeks coherence. Karl Popper once said, "We are not searching for truth, but for confirmation. It is not truth that comforts us. It is familiarity. Truth can disrupt. Confirmation reassures. To be right feels safe. To be wrong feels like stepping toward the edge of the self. And so the mind chooses the quieter path, even if that path leads nowhere new. But confirmation bias does not only shape the way we see others, it shapes the way we see the world and the way we see ourselves. If you have been hurt before, you may begin to view everything through the lens of that pain, seeing danger where there is only silence, rejection where there is simply exhaustion, abandonment where there is merely distance. If you have been betrayed, you may search unconsciously for signs of betrayal. If you have been left behind, you may see departure even in someone who simply needs time alone. The mind repeats the old story, not because it is true, but because it is familiar. But let this voice carry another breeze into you, a gentler one. The beliefs of the past are not always the truths of the present. A mirror that once reflected you in a distorted way does not mean it will remain distorted forever. A painful experience does not determine what all future experiences will be. One person disappointing you does not mean everyone will. You do not need to keep defending beliefs that once protected you. They helped you survive, but they may no longer help you live. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." The soul takes on the color of its thoughts. But you can choose a different color. You can choose to let your mind seek not only confirmation, but clarity, not to defend the self, but to free it. When you allow yourself to see even one thing differently, even for a brief moment, you lift the anchor of your bias and open a new sea within your awareness. Try whispering gently to yourself in the softness of the night. Maybe I have not seen everything. Just one sentence. Not to criticize yourself, but to open a door. And once that door opens, the light will find its own way in. And from this moment, where your certainty softens just enough for truth to breathe, the night's journey will drift tenderly into part 25. The illusory truth effect, where we explore why anything repeated often enough, even if false, begins to feel true in the mind, and why old stories, repeated for years within us, can silently become destiny. As the afterglow of Part 24 on confirmation bias continues to hum softly within you like the last breath of a night wind gliding over a still lake, as you begin to see clearly that humans do not seek truth but seek validation for the stories they already carry, you may notice a gentle shift unfolding, that not only do our chosen beliefs shape our inner world, but even the things we hear, repeated long enough, slowly harden into truth, even when we once knew they were not true at all. And from this quiet threshold between what we choose to believe and what we are slowly conditioned to believe, the journey of the night leads you into Part 25. The illusory truth effect, the mechanism that makes the human brain accept anything repeated often enough as true, regardless of its accuracy. Let your body soften. Let your breath fall one layer deeper. Let your mind grow quiet, like a room where the lights are slowly dimming. For what we are about to enter is not meant to stir anxiety, but to gently loosen the false truths that have lived inside you for far too long. The illusory truth effect was first discovered in psychological studies in the early 20th century and confirmed through dozens of experiments since. When people hear a piece of information repeatedly, they gradually rate it as more truthful. Not because its logic becomes more convincing, but because it becomes familiar. The brain confuses familiar with true. The more we hear something, the easier it is to believe. The more it is repeated, the less we question it. And in everyday life, this mechanism runs endlessly. Casual remarks become destiny. Judgments become identity. Old voices become the voice inside our head. Nietzsche once wrote in Beyond Good and Evil, "There are no facts, only interpretations." What he did not add, what psychology later revealed, is that if an interpretation is repeated often enough, the brain will store it as a fact. Let your mind soften and drift back to childhood. Was there ever a sentence you heard again and again about yourself? You're slow, you're clumsy, you're not good with people, you're difficult, you're stubborn, you're not as smart as the others. These words, spoken casually in fleeting moments, became truths simply because they were repeated enough for your brain to accept them as part of your nature. And then you grew up, carrying these false truths like a second skin, until every small failure became evidence for them, a whisper from the mind saying, "See, this is who you are." No proof required, no reasoning needed, only familiarity. The illusory truth effect is dangerous not because it is forceful, but because it is quiet. It does not storm in. It settles in like dust, one word at a time, one glance at a time, one story at a time, the way a single drop of water, falling on the same spot again and again, eventually reaches the deepest layer of stone. A compliment repeated enough can make you believe you can rise higher. A criticism repeated enough can make you believe you are incapable. A phrase someone once said too many times, can rewrite your sense of self entirely. Humans believe what is familiar, not what is true. In Thinking Fast and Slow, Daniel Kahneman wrote, "A reliable way to make people believe in falsehoods is frequent repetition. Repetition is the surest way to plant false beliefs." And this is true not only in society, in media, in politics, but in the smallest, most intimate spaces, families, relationships, and the quiet inner voice you speak to yourself with. Take a moment in this peaceful night to look inward. What are the things you believe simply because you have heard them too often? That you are unworthy of love, that you are not talented enough, that you are always the problem, that you must work twice as hard to be worth half as much, that you do not matter, that you are only lovable when you are perfect. These beliefs do not live in you because they are true. They live in you because they were repeated so many times that you forgot whose voice they originally belonged to. But let this voice bring a soft awakening to you. What is repeated is not always true. It is merely familiar, and you can change the chorus within. You can begin with words that are small, quiet, gentle, like planting a new seed into soil that once felt barren. I am worthy. I am enough. I am changing. I am learning to love myself. I am allowed to be different. These words need not be grand. They only need repetition, for if repetition can create false beliefs, repetition can also create true ones. The illusory truth effect is not a chain, it is a doorway. Once you recognize it, you begin to see the world with clearer eyes. You stop trusting every idea that is repeated too loudly. You pause when you hear something that makes you shrink. You ask, is this real or just repeated? You choose the stories you allow into your heart. Wittgenstein once wrote, "Words are deeds, words are actions. Repeated words are the strongest actions of all. Allow yourself to choose those actions wisely toward healing rather than hurt. And as you lie here, wrapped in the tender stillness of night, try whispering quietly within yourself. I am allowed to believe what brings me peace." Just that. Repeated gently enough, even that one sentence can become a new truth, a correct truth, one that helps you grow, open, and breathe softly again. And from this place, where you begin to lift away each layer of false truth from your mind, the night's journey will drift gently into part 26. The Zeigarnik effect, where we explore why unfinished tasks, unresolved emotions, and stories left open linger far longer in the mind than anything complete. As the gentle reflections from part 25 on the illusory truth effect continue drifting softly through your mind, like the lingering echo of a melody, whose final notes have faded, but whose presence still hangs in the air. As you begin to recognize that anything repeated long enough can crystallize into a truth within the unconscious, even when it was never proven. You may feel another subtle movement rising beneath the surface, something even more persistent than repeated words, a mechanism that grips the mind not through familiarity, but through incompletion, holding on so tightly that you cannot let go, cannot forget, cannot move on, like a door left half closed that refuses to shut. And from this intersection between repetition and the unfinished, the night's journey guides you into part 26. The Zeigarnik effect, the psychological phenomenon that makes the mind cling to what has not been completed, to stories without endings, to conversations left suspended, to relationships without closure, to wounds that were never named. Let your breath fall slowly. Let your body soften like the final layer of mist resting on the earth before dawn rises, and allow this voice to guide you into one of the deepest mysteries of the human mind. Why we release what is whole so easily, yet hold on to what is unfinished, even when it exhausts us. The Zeigarnik effect was discovered in 1927 by psychologist Bluma Zeigarnik, who noticed that waiters in a cafe could recall every order still being prepared, but once the dish was served and the bill was paid, they forgot everything instantly. The mind holds tightly to what is unfinished, but lets go quickly when something is complete, as if the psyche has a door that stays open only for what is unresolved, closing only when everything is whole. But in our lives, how many things are ever truly whole? How many, if only moments? How many conversations that dissolved into silence? How many messages left unanswered? How many departures without explanation? How many wounds without a name? And how many emotions touched only halfway? This is why the unfinished returns to the mind like a refrain that refuses to end. Nietzsche once wrote, "What is done out of love is done beyond good and evil." Yet what is not completed in love remains in a grey twilight where nothing is clear. Right or wrong, stop or continue, hold on or release. The mind cannot close a door without a latch, and so we keep it open day after day, year after year. The Zeigarnik effect speaks not only of unfinished tasks, it speaks of unhealed emotions. It speaks of the person we never said goodbye to. It speaks of the apology we never heard. It speaks of the truth we were never given. It speaks of the moment we longed to understand, but received only silence. The mind cannot tolerate that emptiness. It resists the uncompleted. It demands an answer. And when an answer is not available, it invents endless versions of one, looping them again and again through the dark. Feel this slowly. It is the incomplete stories that keep you awake at night. Not the ones resolved, not the ones you understood, not the person you have already outgrown, but the one who disappeared without a word. The sentence left hanging, the feeling abandoned halfway, the plans that never unfolded, the dreams that never touched the ground, the questions you wanted to ask but never could, the love you wanted to give but were interrupted before you could finish. The Zeigarnik effect turns the mind into a corridor lined with doors left slightly ajar, and even the smallest breeze can make them tremble and knock against one another, creating echoes that repeat endlessly. Why? What if? If only, could it have been different? And so we become trapped in a maze of questions that torment us without ever giving us answers. But allow this voice to offer you a truth that is soft, like a small oil lamp flickering in a dark room. The mind does not cling because you are weak. It clings because it is trying to protect you from uncertainty. The unfinished frightens the mind because it cannot close the chapter. It attempts to complete the story but lacks the missing pieces. And in its effort to fill the gaps, it keeps you awake, keeps you remembering, keeps you circling back, not to hurt you, but to keep you safe from what it cannot comprehend. Wittgenstein once said, "A question is a trap." And the unfinished is exactly that, a trap woven from unanswered questions. But here is the beautiful thing. You do not need the answer to close the chapter. You do not need an apology to heal. You do not need understanding to move on. You do not need to know why to reclaim your life. Not every door must be closed from the outside. Some doors you can gently close yourself, softly, quietly, just enough. Try whispering within yourself, like a lullaby sent inward. I allow the unfinished to end here. This sentence does not slam the door shut. It lays it down. It breaks nothing. It simply releases what has weighed too heavily. For sometimes, the only way to continue is not by finishing the story, but by ending the obsession with it. And when you take a slow breath in the quiet of night, when your body feels a little lighter as though you've set down an invisible burden, you may notice that you have stepped out of the spinning cycle within your mind. And from this tender emptiness, where unfinished things begin to dissolve like morning mist, the journey will carry you into part 27. Reverse psychology, where we explore a curious paradox. The more we are forbidden, the more we desire. The more we are pushed away, the more we lean in. The more we are told no, the more we are drawn toward yes. As the lingering resonance from part 26 on the Zeigarnik effect continues to shimmer softly within your mind, like a thin line of light resting on a lake after a long evening, as you begin to recognize that unfinished stories, incomplete emotions, and unresolved moments can stay in the mind longer than anything whole. You may feel a subtle shift opening gently inside you, that human beings are not only bound by what is unfinished, but also pulled toward what is forbidden, as if within each of us there is a small flame that burns brighter the more someone tries to smother it. And from this meeting point between the obsession with the unfinished and the temptation of the forbidden, the night's journey guides you into part 27, Reverse Psychology, where a paradox of human nature reveals itself. The more we are told don't, the more we want to try. The more we are pushed away, the more we want to step in. The more we are denied, the more we long to be accepted. The more we are restricted, the more we want to break free. Let your breath soften. Let your shoulders fall as gently as a door pulled closed by a whisper of wind, and allow this voice to open within you a space both warm and deep, where we can see a profoundly human truth. That humans are not creatures who obediently follow instructions, but beings magnetically drawn toward the hidden, the locked, the forbidden. Reverse psychology operates through an ancient but powerful principle. Human beings crave the freedom of choice, the feeling of autonomy, of self-determination, of being the author of their own life. And any command, whether direct or subtle, gentle or harsh, can collide with that deepest core. When someone says, "Don't do that," the mind translates it as a threat to its freedom. And when freedom is threatened, instinct awakens. We do the opposite, not because the action itself matters, but because the ability to choose matters more. Blaise Pascal once wrote in Pensée, "Man is nothing but a subject full of natural error, and this error is the source of all his misery." And yet what Pascal calls natural error often becomes our deepest expression of self, the rebellion, the reversal, the quiet insistence that I decide who I am. Think of the smallest moments in life. A child told don't touch that reaches out even more. A person told stop thinking about it, thinks of it twice as much. A heart told don't love that person finds itself leaning toward them even more. And even within yourself, when someone says that isn't for you, a small whisper rises inside. Let me find out on my own. Reverse psychology illustrates the truth Nietzsche described in Thus Spoke Zarathustra. The will to power is the will to be oneself. People want to be themselves, and any command that threatens this leads to an opposite reaction. But reverse psychology is not always loud rebellion. Often it unfolds quietly, in the smallest corners of the heart. When you are told, "Don't be sad," the sadness deepens. When you are told, "Let it go," the memory resurfaces even more vividly. When you are told, "Don't cry," your tears rise quicker. When you are told, "Don't pay attention," your heart cannot look away. Humans do not want to be controlled. That is the essence. And reverse psychology is simply the mind defending its freedom. But reverse psychology is not only about resistance, it is about longing. The longing to experience what is hidden, to touch what is concealed, to see what is behind the door you are told not to open. Humans move toward the unknown, the forbidden, the locked, the unreachable. Kierkegaard wrote in Either Or, the forbidden stimulates the longing. What is forbidden awakens desire. This is why certain relationships become most intoxicating when they shouldn't happen. Why risky choices quicken the heart. Why locked doors grow larger in our imagination. Look gently inside your own mind. Is there something you once pursued simply because someone said you couldn't? Someone you once wanted simply because they were more distant than they should have been? A dream you chased just because others dismissed it? A wound you returned to because someone told you to forget it? You weren't trying to be rebellious. You were trying to protect your own autonomy, to assert that you are the author of your own life. But let this voice offer a softer, wiser truth. Not everything forbidden is worth wanting, and not every act of resistance leads to freedom. Sometimes we desire something not because it fits us, but because it was denied to us. Sometimes we cling to someone not because they are right for us, but because they left. Sometimes we chase a path not out of passion, but because someone said we couldn't walk it. Here, reverse psychology becomes a mirror, reflecting back what we pursue out of authenticity and what we pursue out of the ego's need to prove itself. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. When you understand that rebellion is not freedom, and that choice is freedom, you step out of the trap of reverse psychology. You begin to see what is truly worth moving toward. You are no longer guided by what is forbidden, but by what brings your soul peace. And in this soft, silk-like quiet of the night, as your breath steadies, deeper and lighter, whisper gently to yourself, 'I do not need to rebel to be myself.' This sentence does not break anything. It opens a door into a quieter kind of freedom. Freedom from pressure, from prohibition, from the ego's urge to prove itself, from all the voices trying to steer your behavior inside and outside. And from this place, where you step out of the paradox's pull, the night's journey will gently carry you into part 28. The mirror effect and connection, where you will discover that humans are not only drawn toward what is forbidden, but also toward the reflection of themselves in another. A psychological mechanism both beautiful and dangerous, both bridge and trap. Would you like me to continue part 28 in the same soothing, seamless, meditative style? As the lingering echoes of part 27 on reverse psychology continue to drift softly through your mind like the faint reverberation of a door closing somewhere far off in the wind, as you recognize the way human beings resist boundaries and prohibitions in order to protect their inner freedom, you may start to feel another movement awakening within, gentler, more subtle, and deeply human. It is not the pull toward the forbidden this time, but a natural attraction toward what carries the shadow of oneself. As though, in this vast world, we are inevitably drawn to the places where we find pieces of our own reflection, to the people who mirror parts of us we have forgotten, abandoned, or never dared to look at directly. And from this soft unfolding, the night's journey brings you into part 28, the mirror effect in human connection, where we explore one of the most delicate and beautiful mechanisms of human psychology. We trust and are drawn toward those who resemble us, or who hold something that feels familiar, as if we've known them long before a single word was exchanged. Let your breath settle. Let your eyelids close like two gentle doors, and allow this voice to guide you into a place where connection does not begin with reason, but with reflection. The mirror effect describes a phenomenon in which humans instinctively trust and feel comfortable with those who resemble them, not in everything, but in some small thing. A smile, a tone of voice, a way of listening, an expression in the eyes, or simply a faint echo of a memory that person awakens in you. For no matter how strong we pretend to be, every human heart yearns for one thing above all: to be understood without having to explain itself. And when we encounter someone who makes us feel as though we are seeing a part of ourselves, that understanding appears instantly, before language, before thought. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche wrote, "We love life, not because we are used to living, but because we are used to loving. And humans love not through the perfection of another, but through familiarity, through the sense of belonging, being seen, being mirrored." Think back to the last time you met a stranger and felt a sudden familiarity within seconds. as if your mind recognized something long before your logic caught up. That is not magic. That is the mirror effect. When you see a part of yourself in someone else, your mind lowers its defenses, opens its doors, and even idealizes that person simply because they touched something already alive in you. Perhaps it was a gentleness you once had, a strength you longed for, a vulnerability you hid, a loneliness you thought you outgrew. Or maybe it was just a small expression that reminded you of an older version of yourself. But the mirror effect is not only responsible for positive connections, it is also why we are often drawn to what harms us. We are pulled back toward those who carry the scent of our past, even when the past was painful. Humans love what feels familiar, even when familiarity once broke them. Freud wrote in Beyond the Pleasure Principle, "We repeat what we do not repair. We repeat what we have not healed." And part of the mirror effect is this repetition. We see our own shadow in someone else and mistake it for connection, when sometimes it is simply an old wound resurfacing. And yet, the mirror effect is also why the most beautiful relationships often begin with a gentle reflection. When two people see in each other something that allows the soul to rest, not because the other is perfect, but because they are real. That reflection calms the mind, steadies the heart, and allows connection to grow as naturally as breath. Plato wrote in Symposium, "Love is the name for our pursuit of wholeness. Love is the journey toward wholeness." And the mirror effect is that first moment when we glimpse a missing piece of ourselves in another. Now let your mind drift softly in the night and look gently inward. Have you trusted someone too quickly? Loved too quickly? Opened too deeply simply because they carried something familiar? And when they left, did you feel not only the loss of them, but the loss of the version of yourself you saw reflected in them? The mirror effect makes separation feel sharper because we do not only lose a person, we lose a reflection. But let this voice carry a softer truth into you, like a breeze slipping across a quiet rooftop. A reflection is not a prison. It is a reminder of who you once were, who you still are, and who you could be. Whatever you saw in them existed in you first. If they brought you gentleness, that gentleness was already yours. If they made you feel whole, that wholeness lived within you. If they awakened joy, that joy had never left you. They were merely a mirror, helping you see what was already there. And when you understand this, the mirror effect becomes a gift, not a trap. It teaches you that true connection does not arise from similarity alone, but from the courage to look at yourself reflected in another and not be afraid of what you see. When you no longer depend on another to see your own worth, you are free. You connect not out of longing, but out of abundance. You love not because you need, but because you choose. Now whisper softly to your own heart, like a gentle breath dissolving into darkness. What I seek in others is also waiting for me within myself. This small sentence is a lamp turned inward, illuminating not their reflection, but your own. And from this tender shift, where you see clearly that all human connection begins with an inner reflection, the night's journey now carries you toward Part 29. The self is an illusion, where we look deeper into the nature of the self, to understand that what we call identity is only a story woven from memory, experience, emotion, and perception. A story beautiful, fragile, and endlessly changing. As the gentle resonance of Part 28 on the mirror effect in human connection still lingers in your mind like a warm breath resting softly upon the surface of thought, as you recognize that sometimes what we seek in others is merely a reflection of ourselves, a part once forgotten, once lost, or never fully acknowledged, you may begin to sense a deeper question unfolding, a question rising like a faint glow from the depths of consciousness. If we are drawn to the reflections of ourselves in others, if the things we love, fear, resent, or long for all emerge from an inner fragment, then what is this self we're seeing? Does it truly exist as an independent entity? Is it constant? Or is it nothing more than a story woven from memory, emotion, desire, experience, and the countless reflections cast upon us by the world around us? And from this very intersection, the night's journey leads you into part 29. The Self as an Illusion, where we encounter one of the deepest truths explored by philosophy, psychology, and contemplative traditions alike. The self we protect, worry over, decorate, and defend every day does not exist in the way we think it does. Let your body loosen, let your breath move like wind through a quiet forest, and allow your mind to open slowly, like a flower blooming in darkness, for what we are entering is not meant to destroy the ego, but to gently see through it. Across many philosophical and spiritual traditions, the ego, the self, is not a fixed entity, but a process, a movement, a story rewritten in every passing moment. David Hume once declared in A Treatise of Human Nature, "I never can catch myself at any time without a perception, and never can observe anything but the perception." He could never find an independent self, only fleeting perceptions, thoughts, emotions appearing and dissolving. There is no I, only what is happening. Nietzsche, in On the Genealogy of Morality, wrote, "The doer is merely a fiction added to the deed. The person doing the action is simply a story we attach to the action. There is no doer, only the doing." And modern neuroscience echoes the same insight. The self does not reside in any fixed region of the brain. It is a product of the interplay between memory, prediction, bodily sensation, social experience, and countless micro-processes flowing through the brain every second. The self is not an object. It is a useful illusion the brain constructs to organize life. A model, a narrative, a convenient fiction. Look gently at the formation of the self. You are not who you were at age 5, nor who you were at 15, or who you were a year ago. Memories change, the body changes, emotions change, beliefs change, habits change. Nothing in you remains the same. The only reason you believe you are continuous from yesterday to today, from last year to this year, is because the brain stitches together a story that says, "This is me." But that coherence is a narrative, not a thing. Imagine yourself as a river. The water is different every moment, yet we call it the same river. The self is no different. Everything within you is changing constantly, yet the mind gathers these shifting pieces into a unified image so you never feel lost. But that unity is a feeling, not a fact. When you are sad, I is sadness. When you are angry, I is anger. When you are joyful, I is joy. When you are anxious, I is anxiety. But if the I shifts with every emotional wave, then where is the I? And when an emotion dissolves, does that I dissolve with it? In the book, Alan Watts wrote, "Trying to define yourself is like trying to bite your own teeth. Defining yourself is impossible, because the self is the process doing the defining. There is no fixed point to grasp. Let this realization move through you slowly. The self you have spent years protecting, in arguments, in achievements, in failures, in love, in loss, may simply be a story assembled over time. And if it is only a story, you no longer need to fear its change. You no longer need to hold it together with tension. You no longer need to fight to preserve something that has always been fluid. When you think, "I'm not good enough," that is not truth. Just a line in the story. When you think, "I don't deserve love," that is merely a chapter someone else once wrote into you. When you think, "I've always been like this," that is selective memory repeated so often it begins to look real. When you think, "I cannot change," that is not nature. That is fear. All of it is language the mind uses to keep you inside a familiar frame. But that frame does not reveal who you are, only how you've grown used to living. The self is a story, but you are not the story. You are the one listening to it. You are the space in which the story unfolds. You are the sky in which every emotion is only a passing cloud. When you see this clearly, you begin to touch the deepest freedom, the freedom from yourself. Without the burden of ego, you become gentler, kinder, less threatened by mistake, less concerned with proving, less desperate to be perfect. You can breathe deeply, as if for the first time you're no longer carrying the weight of a rigid identity. You can simply be without needing to be someone. Whisper softly to yourself. The self is only a story. I am the one who sees the story. This small sentence is like a door opening inward, leading you into a deeper stillness where expectations soften, fears loosen, comparisons dissolve, and old patterns lose their grip. And in that space, lightness begins to spread, like a night breeze moving across a quiet field. And as you drift within that lightness, where the self becomes only a distant echo of old narratives, the night's journey will guide you into part 30, the final chapter, the future of philosophy and psychology, where we look forward into a horizon of unanswered questions, where consciousness, ego, and reality intertwine into countless unexplored pathways, and where you, with the stillness you have found, may step into a future far wider than you ever imagined. As the lingering resonance of part 29 on the self as an illusion continues to drift softly within you like the last layer of mist that has yet to dissolve before dawn rises, as you realize that the self you have spent a lifetime guarding, holding on to, and proving is in truth only a gentle story woven by the mind to help you navigate the chaos of existence. A story not fixed but constantly shifting like waves meeting the shore. You may begin to sense a new doorway opening, not toward the past, not even toward the present, but toward the future. The future of philosophy and psychology, the future of our understanding of consciousness, identity, and reality, the future of the very self that has just dissolved into stillness. And from this quiet threshold, the night's journey guides you into part 30, the future of philosophy and psychology, where we look softly ahead into landscapes uncharted, where unanswered questions await, where each step reveals another inquiry, like moonlight gliding across the ocean and leaving behind countless shimmering lines upon the water. Let your mind relax. Let your body melt as the weight of the day loosens grain by grain into the dark, and allow this voice to become a gentle current carrying you into a wider, deeper space, where the future no longer appears frightening, but becomes an open door through which you may breathe more freely. The future of philosophy does not lie in answers, but in the ability to ask questions. Philosophy exists like a long breath of humanity, and each generation, as Heidegger wrote in Being and Time, we are always already thrown into a world we did not choose. We are always cast into a world that has never offered ready-made solutions. And philosophy, by deepening questions, clarifying contradictions, and illuminating the shadowed corners of the mind, helps us find a form of freedom not in answers, but in understanding that every question is an open path. In the years to come, Philosophy will no longer live only in books, classrooms, or the notes of great thinkers. It will become the way we face the turbulence of reality, the surge of technology, the rise of artificial intelligence, and entirely new questions about the nature of consciousness, the idea of a soul, the boundary between human and machine, and whether the notion of self still holds meaning when memory, the body, and identity can all be altered. And the future of psychology is unfolding in the same expansive way. Doors are opening that have never existed before. We now live in an age where the brain is slowly being decoded, where neuroscientists are discovering that every thought, emotion, and memory is shaped by tiny electrical signals, where the ego, emotion, and perception seem to arise from billions of neurons dancing in harmony. And yet the strangest truth is this: the more we learn about the brain, the more we realize that some aspects of being lie beyond the brain, the subjective realm of experience, the emotional depths like the ocean floor, and the ineffable moments of consciousness that science calls qualia. The very thing Thomas Nagel explored in his haunting question from "What is it like to be a bat?" What is it like for the organism itself? The future of psychology will not simply explain mechanisms. It will venture into the territory where science and philosophy meet, the subjectivity of being. And as the world transforms at accelerating speed, the human psyche will be forced to change with it. New questions will arise. When technology can recreate memories, which memories are truly yours? When artificial intelligence can simulate emotion, is emotion still uniquely human? When identity becomes something that can be designed in digital worlds, where does the I reside? Alan Watts once wrote in The Wisdom of Insecurity, "The only thing that is permanent is the fact that nothing is permanent." And this becomes the foundation for the future of philosophy and psychology. They will not attempt to pin down absolute truths, but will learn how to live within movement itself. In the future, philosophy will revolve around questions humanity has never faced before. When consciousness can be simulated, what distinguishes the real from the artificial? When the body is no longer a limit, what does it mean to be human? When the self is merely a model in the brain, can we choose a different version of ourselves? When reality can be rebuilt in virtual space, what separates truth from fabrication? And perhaps the most important, what makes a life meaningful in a world where everything can be constructed? Meanwhile, the psychology of tomorrow will dive deeper into healing generational wounds, healing the loneliness of the digital age, healing the ego unraveling in virtual worlds, healing the disorientation caused by thousands of versions of self that society demands. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." And perhaps the future of psychology will bring us back to the place we abandoned for too long, our own inner home. But this time, a gentler version of ourselves, less rigid, less judgmental, less attached, more whole. In the quiet of this night, try to feel that the future is not something you must decode now. It does not demand decisions. It does not require preparation. It simply invites you to open your heart, like a wooden door in the forest opening onto a path you have never walked before. And in that future, philosophy will continue to ask, psychology will continue to heal, and you, yes you, will continue becoming new versions of yourself, lighter, freer, more attuned to the delicate, luminous nature of consciousness. Whisper softly within yourself, "I do not need to know everything. I need only to open myself to what is coming." That sentence falls as gently as a leaf touching the surface of a lake. And yet it opens something essential. The future is not a problem, it is a flow. And you, the one who has listened all the way to the final chapter of this night, only need to let yourself drift within that flow, letting philosophy continue its quiet questioning, letting psychology hold you with its healing touch, letting yourself rest in the deep, silent tenderness of the unknown. And as this passage closes like a thin curtain drawn softly before you drift into sleep, let everything heavy dissolve like mist in early light. Let the questions become companions rather than burdens, and let the future become a soft, luminous space into which you step with a peaceful heart. 3 hours of the most disturbing psychology, tricks to fall asleep. 2.